States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please, a moment of silence for everyone who's been affected by discrimination. Thank you. Please have a seat. Roll call.
Karlovich.
Here.
Reichner.
Here.
Reese. Brochus.
Here.
Eister.
An executive session was held prior to the council meeting to discuss real property acquisition and litigation matters. Is there any public comments on agenda items only at this time?
Hearing none.
Because it's electronic, I want to give because of the delay. Okay, moving forward. All right, Chief Bradley here, presentation use of force.
Okay. And my ethics change the sharing of the stream.
Where do we take this?
It takes a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first off, I want to thank the mayor and council, Jody, Joel, and everybody else that is here and in the computer world audience. In light of everything going on the last few weeks with use of force questions, I thought it was I thought I needed to explain to the mayor and council and people and the citizens of Sunbury what our use of force policy is for the Sunbury Police Department and go through just some of the protocols that we go through. Right now, we're in a unique situation, and I keep saying that because we have a lot of new police officers in the city. So we are reviewing this, not only the veteran officers are reviewing this policy on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, everything. We have these new officers that are coming in. This is something we instill to them when we drill it into their heads, that this is one of the most important things when it comes to law enforcement. Next slide, if you could go. Basically, our use of force policy runs under 1.3.1, use of force continuum authorizing only to accomplish lawful objectives. Use of force justification. Pennsylvania Crimes Code, Title 18, Chapter 5, General Principles of Justification describes those circumstances in which the use of force is justified. These provisions and the related case law, including federal case law, made binding on Pennsylvania through the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, shall establish the only legally binding restrictions regarding the use of force by police department personnel as it relates to criminal or enforceable civil matters. In any necessary use of force, all police department personnel shall only utilize the force necessary to effect lawful objectives. In conformance to the provisions of the Pennsylvania Crimes Code, other Pennsylvania statutory provisions, and applicable Pennsylvania and federal court decisions, in accordance with the department's use of force continuum that establishes use of force options in their appropriate application. So essentially, we use Title 18, Chapter 5 to basically go by what the legislature tells us what we can and cannot do. One of the first things that we do use before we use any type of force is, during the force continuum, is de-escalation. That is something that really came into law enforcement probably for the last 10 to 15 years, is de-escalation. So when safe and feasible and without compromising law enforcement priorities, officers shall use de-escalation tactics in order to reduce the need for force. Some of those ways are, officers shall conduct a threat assessment so as not to precipitate an unnecessary, unreasonable, or disproportionate use of force by placing themselves or others in undue jeopardy. Team approaches to de-escalation are encouraged and should consider officer training and skill level, number of officers, and whether any officer has successfully established rapport with the subject. Basically saying that that's what we try to say when we go to either domestic violence calls or event disturbances. We try to go in at least too deep. With our small department, sometimes it's tough with handling calls to call, but we prioritize what we're doing, and we always recommend that you go in too deep with somebody just for safety reasons alone, but not only the officer, but to the citizen. Where officers use a team approach to de-escalation, each individual officer's obligation to de-escalate will be satisfied as long as the officers actually complement the overall approach. Selection of de-escalation options should be guided by the totality of the circumstances with the goal of attaining voluntary compliance. So a lot of the things, like we say, a lot of times an officer will get on scene, or a lot of citizens don't know some of our newer officers, but they recognize themselves, Sergeant Remington, or Corporal Slack, and right away they're going to want to talk to us. And unfortunately, we're in the supervisory role, so we try to get the officers to, we see how we were also, when we're on scene, we're also trying to reevaluate and supervise them and see what they're doing. A lot of times they want to come talk to us, and we'll talk. Try to de-escalate everything that's going on. Because a lot of times, it's just a misunderstanding of what's going on until you get everybody together, everybody apart, try to solve it. So a lot of times it's just de-escalating by talking to them. That's all they want to do. They want somebody to lean on and talk to. So that's why a lot of times the veteran guys, myself, Slack, and Remington, they flock to us because we've been here the longest and they know us. And they know what kind of officers we are. You know, they know they can talk to us and deal with it. The City of Sunbury Police Department has established a use of force continuum composed of 9 levels of force. Doesn't mean each one of these this is the way it has to go. This is where you start, and it can change at any point in time depending on the situation. Use of force level 1, officer presence. Just by me showing up on scene, that's a use of force. As soon as I pull up in the car, marked car, uniform, that is considered a use of force through our force policy. Use of force level 2 is verbal command. During citizen context, each officer must endeavor to make every reasonable attempt to ensure his or her conduct inspires respect and generates cooperation, a feeling of goodwill between the citizen and the department. That is instilled in our officers every day. Treat everyone, no matter who they are, with respect, and you'll get a lot further once you do that. The manner and form which officer speaks to an individual can be effective means of exerting control over the situation. Verbal control may be in the form of advice, persuasion, admonitions, or orders. The volume and tone of the officer's comments may also be an effective tool to assume control over a situation without having to progress to any higher level of force. The use of profanity or disrespectful or argumentative conduct on the part of the officer is never accepted. Let's be real. It happens. You have officers sometimes that do get a little aggressive when they're trying to talk to somebody. It does happen. We're human. We get angry too. We get upset. It's where do we take that anger and aggression on the citizen, maybe needing help or something like that. I'm not saying it's perfect. None of this is perfect, but we don't try to refrain from using disrespectful language, profanity, stuff like that. Does it happen? Depending on the situation, what's wrong. It does happen. And we try to either counsel the officer, the language they use. Does it happen every day? No. Depending, again, on the situation. I'm not saying it's great. We're not perfect. So going on to the use of force level 3, intermediate devices. So taser electronic control devices, commonly referred to as tasers, and chemical agents, which is OC spray, may be utilized by police personnel as an appropriate and effective use of force in certain circumstances. The use of the taser or OC shall be restricted to the following situations. When necessary for the officer to defend himself or herself or other threats of or imminent assault by physically offensive or combative action by any individual or animal. To effectually a lawful arrest when confronted with a non-compliant, non-submissive individual. To prevent the commission of a criminal offense. When lower levels of force have been exhausted or by the nature of confrontational circumstances would be deemed ineffective. Taser and chemical agents will be used only to the extent necessary to overcome the resistance of the suspect and with the authorized scope of the current departmental training standards. A lot of times you get on scene, there's a disturbance, fight, somebody's being aggressive with you, could use it for mental health issues. I've had to tase somebody where a mental health patient was actually halfway going to jump out the window. And we had to use a taser to get them dropped right there, which is what we did. That's one of the effective ways to do it. We can army at night, stuff like that. A lot of times we get our tasers out, people stop. They see the red dots and they comply after that point. Once the compliance is in effect, we're done. Then we go back to, maybe you take a step back, maybe now you're talking. Taking community custody, treating them with respect. That's all we ask our officers to do. OC, we don't use a lot of OC here. We have guys that are officers that are trained in OC, but we very rarely have to use OC. So on to the use of level number 4, mechanical compliance. On occasion, police officers are faced with uncooperative individuals or one who refuses to be placed in custody, and alternatives would be inappropriate or have been ineffective. Incidents of this nature require officers using a combination of strength, leverages, takedowns, holds, come alongs with sufficient force to make the lawful arrest without unnecessarily aggravating the situation. The object of this level of force is to gain control and compliance while minimizing the risk of injury to the officer, the person being placed in custody, or innocent bystander. This is very important, and I want everybody to listen to this. This is something we've had in our policy for a long time. The use of carotid restraint or other chokeholds or neck restraints are specifically and strictly prohibited by the use of martial law. We do not do chokeholds. We do not do carotid either, basically. There is an exception to the rule. An officer or another person is in fear of death or serious bodily injury, and there is no other alternative based on the presenting circumstances. Carotid restraints or other chokeholds are permissible for defense of the officer or another's life as a last resort. So that is the only exception to that rule. We do not use them on a regular basis. We don't hardly ever have to really get physical with a lot of people. But when we do, it's to get compliance of what we need to do right then and there, and we're done. Use of force level 5, unarmed striking techniques. This is basically your fist, hands, elbows, knees, feet, striking the adversary. These striking techniques may be used by officers to defend themselves against unlawful assaults, where higher levels of force are not necessary, and lower levels of force would be inappropriate or have been ineffective. Use of force level 5, or number 6, is canine deployment. We used to have canine, but we still have it in our policy in case the canine does come back, or we use in other departments with their canine, so we kind of have give that canine officer that comes into our jurisdiction. Kind of give them an overview of what we're looking for. I'm not going to skip over that one. Use of force level number 7 is striking implement. The use of striking implements other than physical confrontation for higher levels of force are not necessary, and lower levels of force would be inappropriate or have an ineffective. Be it time or what So, use of force level number 8, less lethal munitions. That's essentially your beanbag rounds. We don't have rubber bullets. We do have a beanbag shotgun. Still, but I don't think we have we'll sit in our bowl. Use of force level number 9, deadly or potentially deadly force. An officer will utilize deadly force only when legally justified and when they need to do so, strong and compelling, only as a last resort. When lower levels of force have been ineffective or would be inappropriate given the threat level confronting the officer. When a firearm or other form of deadly force is used, it must be with the realization that the death of another human may occur. Section 1.3.2 of our rules and regulations related to the use of deadly force shall be the controlling policy of the police department as it relates to the use of deadly force. The section, as well as the policy disclaimer, the section, as well as other general orders, are explanatory in nature and are intended as a guide for departmental personnel in accomplishing their mandated lawful objectives. It shall not be considered or construed to create a higher standard than provided by law. So we still have to go by what the law says. Although the use of force continuum generally describes the process whereby an officer can escalate the application of force under various presenting situations, nothing in this policy shall infer that any given level cannot be skipped in the escalation, given those presenting circumstances, or that any escalation cannot be reduced given other presenting circumstances. So if we're in a situation where we're talking to somebody and they pull out a gun, or a knife, or a deadly weapon against another person or another officer, you're not going to use the taser, you're not going to use whatever, you're going to skip. That's why I said it's depending on the situation that you come up with, is what you use deadly force. Under the use of deadly force, again, this is under Title 18. Peace officer, law enforcement officer, as defined in Chapter 5 of the Pennsylvania Crimes Code, Title 18, Section 501, shall only use deadly force when necessary and justified to effect lawful objective confirmation to the Pennsylvania Crimes Code, other Pennsylvania statutory provisions, and the Pennsylvania Federal Court decision. Title 18, Chapter 5, Section 508, subsection A, relating to the use of force in law enforcement, provides for the lawful and justified use of deadly force by a police officer only when he or she believes that the action is in defense of human life, including the officer's own life, or in defense of any person that be imminent danger or seriously physical injury, or when he or she believes both, that such force is necessary to prevent the arrest by being defeated by resistance or escape. The person to be arrested has committed or attempted for a forcible felony, or is attempting to escape and possesses a deadly weapon, or otherwise indicates that he or she will endanger human life or inflict serious bodily injury unless arrested without delay. That some comes down to Tennessee versus Garner. That's where they got more guidance comes from that, where they had a male that was they break into a home, jumped the fence, they chased him, shot him in the back, he didn't have a weapon. So even though it was a felony, because it used to be all felony for like a shoot into the felony. You have to be able to justification that they had to weapon. That's where that we get our guidance from Tennessee versus Garner. Prohibited use of firearms. Officers are prohibited from discharging firearms under the following circumstances. 1, when it appears that an innocent bystander or other officers are likely to be injured by the officer's firearm discharge. For the purposes of discharging any firearm into the air or ground, warning shots, and an attempt to cause a fleeing subject to stop or surrender. Do not do warning shots. Firing a weapon at or from a moving vehicle, since it is rarely effective and extremely hazardous to innocent persons. Do not. If on TV you see them shooting at cars going down the Wild West, you don't do that. Just don't do that. There are exceptions to the rules. We've had that happen. The occupants of another vehicle are using deadly force against this officer or another person, either with or from the vehicle, or if no other alternative is available based on the presenting circumstances. Again, it comes back to what circumstances are presenting the officer at the time. That's what they have to deal with all the time. There was a couple questions about the medical attention required following use of force. This is what it asked. The officer shall arrange for an emergency medical services, EMS, to examine, treat, or transport any subject to a medical facility if the force used by police personnel caused injury, injury is suspected, or injury is alleged. So every time we use any type of physical use of force, whether it be taser, again, we do verbal or presence, no, we're not having EMS. But any type of physicality with the suspect, we're calling EMS in to do an evaluation. We have people that they don't want treated, they'll sign a waiver, that's usually with the EMS personnel, but our obligation is to make sure we get them, offer them the treatment that they need, which we do a lot. And people do sign off a lot. They think they're injured, or they're suspected injury, where there was no really injury that happened. They just say, I was hurt, we'll call EMS, I'm going to take down. So another question was about our written reports, investigation, and reviews. All officers shall complete a departmental use of force report and a taser report if used. Applicable whenever they discharge a firearm other than routine training, recreational purposes, or animal disposal. Exceptions, again, is the animal disposal. If they put an animal down, they don't use of force per se. They'll document it in the report while they dispatch an animal, and supervisors usually are called part of that animal. Take any actions that result into or alleged to have resulted in any injury to the death of another person. Uses physical force or is alleged to have used physical force on another person. So even though there's no typical regular form, taser has a form we use on a regular basis for when we use a taser form. Any other form, use of force report is usually the officer's report itself. It's usually very detailed, what they did, how they did it, what they did, and why they did it. Those are the questions the supervisors are really on top. Again, we're in a unique situation. We have a lot of new officers. They're learning this, and it's great because they're on top of things when it comes to this stuff. So the last thing I want to show you before I go into a couple more things is a little video that kind of sums up what I believe we do. Okay. About a minute long.
With today's tip on slow. And today's tip is for law enforcement and corrections officers, and it's about chicken wings. Now, I know you're thinking, what is Graham talking about? You're probably thinking I lost my marbles. But I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about something much more serious. Unauthorized arm control holds. These holds can vary, but they all involve forcing a person's arms behind the back and some joint manipulation. Some versions of this involve torquing the straight arms upward, away from the back and towards the head. These holds involve some risk of broken bones, as well as muscle, tendon, and other soft tissue damage. Now, I worked the streets. I know it was a long time ago, but it worked, folks. These arm control holds are very, very valuable when they're authorized, and they can be very effective. Not surprisingly, the big problems come when officers use holds that are not authorized, or use control holds in situations where they're not warranted. Right here in California, there have been millions of dollars of payouts over the last few years due to the alleged abuses of arm control holds. When you're working the streets or jails, and it's reasonably necessary for you to use a wrist or arm control hold, then use it. But whenever possible, use the control holds you learned in the academy and the holds that are approved by your department. Do not be making up your own versions of these things, and only use control holds when appropriate, not to punish, not to harass, not to intimidate, but because they're necessary. And that is today's different flexible.
That was a meaningful, absolutely video also. It has to do with some of the use of force tactics. But the other video that
This is the one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
You know, this might be.
Gordon Ray here with today's tip from Lexipol. And today's tip is for law enforcement and custody officers, and it deals with obligations related to excessive force. As law enforcement and custody professionals, many times we protect people from others. But one day you might find yourself protecting someone from a member of your own agency. When you see another officer using force that you know is unreasonable, you are required to intercede. You've got to take action to prevent the unlawful force when you can. Hopefully the situation never occurs, that situations never get out of hand. Hopefully you've stepped in and offered to take over when you saw a coworker getting really upset. Hopefully everyone got a chance to cool down when you suggested your coworker start taking statements or help with something else. But when you see another officer use unlawful force, you've got an obligation to report it right away. It doesn't matter if it's your friend, your coworker, or even your supervisor. I don't care how difficult or uncomfortable it might be. No looking the other way. No leaving out the details. Or preventing excessive force and reporting excessive force is required by law, and it's probably required by your agency's policy. Also, it's the right thing to do. And that is today's tip from Flexible. Gordon Rail, signing off.
The reason that video is important is because we specifically don't have that words or language in our policy, but there's words in our policy that deals with, basically being a police officer, whether it be a police officer using unjustified force or, over use of force, that they're required to basically tell someone, whether it be their supervisor or another subordinate, let us know. That will not be tolerated in Sunbury Police Department. To wrap up a couple things here quick, I just want to give a couple more things on our general orders, our agency's role, oath of office, our canon of ethics, our agency's missions and values. Under our oath of office, one of the things it says, you acknowledge that they will uphold, obey, and enforce the law without consideration to a person's race, color, sex, religious creed, sexual orientation, age, national origin, ancestry, handicap, or disability. Under our agency's mission is to perform our duties and fulfill our responsibilities of enforcing the law, preserving peace, and providing effective police services with the intent of improving the quality of life for all citizens within our jurisdictions, consistent with the goals and missions of the city of Sunbury, and to perform as a team while aspiring to achieve the highest ethical and moral standards by applying the values of courage, integrity, loyalty, and professionalism in every aspect of our profession. Our value statements also are service to the community, integrity, respect for diversity, responsibility and accountability, and also professionalism. Under our canon of police ethics, we have the primary job responsibility, limitations of authority, duties to be familiar with the law, responsibilities of self and other public officials, utilization of proper means to gain proper ends. And one of the things under that I highlighted is, if the law is to be honored, it must first be honored by those who enforce it. That means that goes deep within our department. Cooperation with public officials in the discharge of their authority, authorized duties. Private conduct. 7, conduct toward the public. And this is important, so I highlighted this also. The law enforcement officer, mindful of his responsibility to the whole community, shall deal with the individuals of the community in a manner calculated to instill respect for its law and its police service. So those are the few things in our canon that I thought it was very important that the council needed to hear. Also, under our law enforcement code of ethics, I'm going to read this. I know we're going along here, but I think this is very important in the time we're in. It's very important that everybody hears what's going on. Basically, our law enforcement code of ethics. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve the community, to safeguard lives and property, protect the innocent against deception, the weak against the oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all with liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all, and will behave in a manner that does not bring discredit to me or to my agents. I will maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn or ridicule, develop self-restraint, be constantly mindful of the welfare of others, honest in thought and deed, both in my personal and official life. I will be exemplary in obeying the law and the regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of confidential nature or that is confided to me in my official capacity will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in the performance of my duty. I will never act officially or permit personal feelings, prejudices, political beliefs, aspirations, animosities, or friendship to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime, with relentless prosecution of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting pursuit. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of police service. I will never engage in acts of corruption or bribery, nor will I condone such acts by the other police officers. I will cooperate with all legally authorized agencies and the representatives in the pursuit of justice. I know that I am alone and responsible for my own standard of professional performance, and will take every reasonable opportunity to enhance and improve my level of knowledge and competence. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement. So, and we also have our oath of honor there that everybody has taken. My honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will uphold my Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve. So those are some of the things that our new officers, even our veteran officers, revised these policies and procedures over the last 2 to 3 years. A lot of work put into that. Former Chief Miller, he had a lot of say in a lot of these, and then the union members. Officer Slack, Corporal Slack, myself, Sergeant Brevin have been a lot of dealings trying to make the police department better. And there's a reason we did this, because like we've said before, we're in a unique situation. We have almost a whole brand new department. We're getting a new building. And our end goal is accreditation. Make the police department a very great police department in the 21st century. And some of the things that, if you go back and listen to the governor last week, he decided he wanted to bring up about the 21st century policing by Barack Obama, and I had a very heated conversation with the mayor about this because I saw it when it came out. This came out in 2015. It took the governor, he's been in office 5-6 years, but 5 years to put this into place. This was 5 years ago that President Barack Obama put this into place. And some of them are really good stuff. The reason I'm going to tell you, there's a bunch of pillars. Pillar 1 is building trust and legitimacy. Pillar number 2 is policy and oversight. Pillar 3 is technology and social media. Pillar 4 is community policing and crime reduction. Pillar 5 is training and education. Pillar 6 is officer wellness and safety. We have already started this process. I know the mayor started it a couple of years ago, and I came on the board. We started a lot of this already. We're ahead of the ballgame, which I'm very grateful for. With the mayor and council as a whole, we've all been working together to make it more transparent in the police department. That's what I've been trying to do. And I think that now is the perfect time to get this out there. The conversation can't stop. Can't let what happened a couple weeks ago with Mr. Floyd continue down the road. We got to keep moving forward. the conversation cannot stop. And it starts with smaller communities. Some of these larger communities and legislators need to take some. They need to take it from the smaller communities. They need to take the word from the smaller communities. That's where it starts. It starts down here. It doesn't start at the top. It starts down here. It starts down here with us, the smaller communities. And I'm very proud to say that we are well on our way to having one of the best police departments, if not the best police department in the area. I have a lot of brothers and sisters in law enforcement in this area. I trust them all. They're all good police officers, but my main concern is Sunbury, and we are well on our way. So thank you for your time. I know it was long-winded, but I think it needs to be said now. Thank you.
Thank you for presenting that to the council. Make a motion to approve the minutes of May 11, 2020 and the reports of the fire department, police department, treasurer, engineer, code office, health department, and planning commission. Do I have a second? Second.
Reichner?
Okay, on the tax exoneration report.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. Reese?
Yes.
Brochus?
Yes.
Ister? Karlovic?
Yes.
12 requests for tax exoneration. 8 of them are deceased, 2 are non-residents, 1 is paid elsewhere, and 1 is SSI. Totaling $1,351.18. So I make a motion that we accept those requests.
Second.
Reese?
Yes.
Brochus?
Yes.
Ister?
Yes.
Karlovic?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes. I'm seeking approval to pay invoice vouchers payable for the general fund of $107,797.40, and liquid fuels of $309.22. I make a motion that we pay those bills.
Brochus?
Yes.
Ister?
Yes.
Karlovic?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes. So I have a proclamation to present to the council. Whereas the city of Sunbury supports the rights of every citizen to experience equality and freedom from discrimination and harassment, and whereas all people, regardless of age, sexual orientation, gender identity, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, or physical challenges have the absolute right to be treated fairly with respect. And whereas the city of Sunbury accepts and welcomes people of diverse backgrounds and believes a diverse population leads to a more vibrant community which contributes greatly to our neighborhoods, culture, and social fabric of our city. And whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ communities contribute to the cultural, civic, and economic successes of the United States of America and the city of Sunbury. Whereas we must acknowledge the need for continued education and awareness to help end discrimination and prejudice against our LGBTQ community. Whereas I invite everyone to reflect on ways we all can live and work together with a commitment to mutual respect and understanding. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Kurt Karlovic, being mayor of the city of Sunbury, County of Northumberland, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, on behalf of Sunbury City Council members, do hereby proclaim June 2020 as LGBTQ Pride Month. I make this into a form of motion to accept this proclamation. Do I have a second? Second.
Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Brochus?
Yes.
Ister?
Yes.
Karlovic?
Yes. So we did receive some information from one of our local breweries in town regarding, they contacted the PLCB regarding having outdoor open containers, and the PLCB does require a letter of some sort of, from the municipality allowing this. So I would make the recommendation to City Council to pass a resolution to allow for citywide a waiver to the open container ordinance, as we have done so in the past for several events that have had no incidents regarding the same. This will help facilitate the businesses to adapt even more under the current circumstances while assisting them to prosper. This will ensure that our residents and visitors who come to enjoy our downtown district and walkable community have a safe place to do so while promoting responsible alcohol consumption and not drinking and driving. All other laws will be still in effect, as you cannot have an open container in your vehicle or be drunk in public, and any other law in relation to alcoholic beverages. Businesses with liquor licenses would need to assure themselves of their ability to provide alcohol for on-premise consumption. All open containers in the public containing alcohol shall be in non-glass containers, no larger than 24 ounces. The open container waiver is only in effect during the hours of 7 a.m. through 11 p.m. This waiver will be effective immediately and expires at 11 p.m. on August 31st, 2020. Nothing in this motion shall prohibit the Sunbury City Council from meeting at a regular scheduled council meeting to discuss updates regarding this waiver and to make changes as needed to ensure for the safety of the community. The city will post a public notice and daily item on the city's official website and Facebook page of the initiation of the open container waiver with adequate information, and again when the waiver expires for public awareness and transparency. I make this into a formal motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Brochus,
Yes.
Eister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Aaron, just got a comment back quick, just so the businesses understand. The LC did send something out to a lot of establishments that they still have to put their application in for it. Still have to apply by their rules, even though the city has done their part. The businesses still have to apply for that special application to have. And what I know that what they're waiting to be, actually until the pandemic is over. So just so the businesses understand, they still have to go through the process. It's real quicker.
I'm sure that'll be quick.
Right, and the next one is to discuss the outdoor seating options for our local businesses. Our current ordinance, the Sunbury Street Obstruction 155-1, it does allow businesses to acquire a permit from the city clerk's office at a cost of $10 per month. All material or objects must be arranged in such a manner that the walkway is kept clear for a distance of 5 feet from the curb line and 5 feet from the edge of tree planting sites. I do enjoy seeing our businesses adapting and allowing for the outdoor seating. But what I have seen so far is that the outdoor seating that is taking place is extremely near the curb line and the vehicles that are parked within, causing a safety concern. I would like for us to discuss safety measures so that we can put in place to help our businesses to ensure that the safety of their customers and to city residents and visitors. I would recommend to allow the businesses to set up temporary tables or serving areas within city parks or municipal lots that must be removed when the business is not open for service. Or allow limited blocking of a parking stall that is directly connected to the business storefront in a sidewalk sitting area during business hours. That way they can utilize that actual curb line itself while maintaining that 5 feet buffer space between each sitting. And when I'm talking about limiting the blocking, I'm talking about the angled portions coming in directly from the storefront windows of the actual business that is allowing the outdoor sitting. So if they have a table here next to the curb line, that parking stall would be blocked with maybe a cone. That way the vehicles aren't pulling in and accidentally hitting the customer sitting near the curb line. So if there is not a table at the curb line, utilize that parking space. But if there's going to be a table there, you got to block that for safety reasons. That's all I have on this. I would like to open up a discussion and to come up with a resolution for businesses. It's still in the ordinance that it's $10 a month.
We not that change. Because we tried to invite some businesses, restaurants back in those days, I'm sitting out. And basically dropped the 10.
Somebody kind of went when it's like school.
It's
pretty nice to do the session.
Okay, so how does the council feel regarding allowing you to utilize the curb line since the ordinance states otherwise, and for blocking the actual parking stall at the curb line, they're utilizing that for safety?
I like it to the point, even more than one stall, for an event in the afternoon or evening, I'm just concerned to make sure it's properly marked. And nobody by mistake pulls in.
And that's why that's why I like the permit process. It's only $10 a month, but that gets the businesses to come in so that the city can ensure that business is receiving the proper information regarding the security.
Really explain how that has to be marked.
And if the business is going to be the people that block it off, it's not going to be the city's responsibility. It will be the city's responsibility. We should.
Well, I'm just going to ask you all. If we block it, we might be.
I have a couple comments. One thing is, if we're going to allow the tables to the curb idea, okay, what I don't think we should do is only block the parking spots in front of the people area. Because, for example, if you have a restaurant and it has 4 tables deep along the front of their restaurant, extending near or to the curb, I think you have to get away with parking anywhere in that area because of ingress and regress. You gotta allow people to pass by. So people that can't use the sidewalk, that are walking down the sidewalk, have to be able to go out into the parking area to walk around the table. So I wouldn't just limit the tables to where I wouldn't just limit the blocking to exactly where the tables are. I'd limit it to the entire area that's basically used by that restaurant.
So it's 5 feet. If they're going to put tables out, they still have to put 5 feet of walkway, no matter where on one side.
But what I'm saying is, I don't like the liability of saying people have to step off the curb, walk where there's no car.
So our ordinance says that if they're going to put tables out, there still has to be 5 feet sidewalk.
That's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying put it out the curb.
Yeah, no, so our current ordinance,
I apologize.
it doesn't allow the businesses to set up at the curb. The wording of the ordinance is they have to be 5 feet from the curb line.
Right, I
But I'm
understand.
seeing businesses setting up tables along the business itself and along the curb line.
Understood.
And when they're putting it along the curb line, all the vehicles are still parking bumper to the table.
Right, and what I'm saying is, I think you can't allow any vehicle parking where the tables are along the.
You're saying if they say they start here and then the whole section has
Even
to
if the
be
tables are 5 feet apart, you can't block this one and not this one and then this one, not this one, because you're going to force pedestrians to go up, down, and if somebody falls, that's our fault.
No,
pedestrians still have to.
Pedestrians are still walking on the sidewalk.
They all.
So
Yeah,
if
sidewalk is
tables
still
against, would they be tables against the building?
Now I understand. Okay.
Tables,
Should have brought it, we need a whiteboard.
Yeah, so that we're clear, it's either tables along the curb or tables along the restaurant.
Or both, if there's enough to go walk in between.
As long as there's 5 feet.
Steve,
I can't do anything with it, I'm not right from that.
should be as far as the spots.
Or the parking lots, or the depend on right away, you can't do that for.
If
We can't block
You can't put a
off
cone in the spot.
We do it all the time.
It's not clean up, really.
Yeah, we
So,
Very straight.
depend on right away, extend the whole town, basically. They want things to do it. No, I have the map on it, depend on right away, they're out. I'm just saying, if we're gonna try to do something in the street,
No, not allow them to sit there. We're trying to shut those stones off, like we normally do with the bags, no
Just no
parking.
parking.
Or safety bump, vehicles not running.
Because they're gonna push the tables out towards the curb.
okay, so.
Get rid of the
And
parking
this will be no
So,
different than us
let's
shutting
put
down
Bob Snyder
parking.
wants to leave. Where people get parked.
It is what it is.
You still would have,
You gotta do it for every.
yeah, and it still would be, so if we want to put, originally did was block the parking space at the table. For instance, let's use the green, because everyone knows it's done really nicely. I think there's only 3 or 4 tables all in there, which still have spaces. And then
Well, it's just lots some space for, out in Cameron Park.
let's park.
And then you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the other
And
part
then
of
they
what
can park where they're supposed to. So people aren't parking 4 blocks away to get there. And just give each one of a designated area, with like Brewery can have this designated area, the Green's can have this designated area. You know?
And we have to keep in mind, not every property on Market Street has outdoor sitting or is going to have outdoor sitting. So if we just block off those parking stalls in front of the actual business that has the outdoor sitting or is going to utilize this great option of putting out some tables and chairs for their customers on the sidewalk, it's only affecting the parking stalls that technically would be people parking for that business. All other markets would be open, and we still have numerous municipal lots scattered throughout downtown.
They still have to apply for an application at least show the plan, correct?
You have to apply for a permit, but there will be no fee for the permit, is what you're saying.
Actually, using Chamber Park, you can't walk from Wiggins, buy a drink, and walk into Chamber Park with it.
You can now.
Yeah.
LCB's allowing it?
Yes.
You told me 192.
I don't want to be quoted,
Yeah.
but 100 and some ounces of beer, 1 cup of alcohol. That's how okay, let me be clear. The LCB, I don't want to talk about ounces, okay? But the LCB, through the governor's office, have released guidelines that are allowing restaurants to sell alcohol and to go. So before you weren't allowed to sell mixed drinks to go. You can sell a mixed drink to go as long as it's closed, okay? Somehow closed. So if they want to take that drink, leave McWiggins, let's say, walk across the street to the park and open it, they're allowed to do that.
They can do that, but there's still an open container.
Well, that's
We
what
just
they
waived
just waived
They're rating it for the whole city.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they just waived that. So that counts for wine, mixed drinks, and beer.
Oh.
Okay.
Let's say a group of businesses want to come together and make full tables at the table. There's not anybody sitting on them. So maybe they order for the business, maybe they don't want more seating. But I don't think you can get into a wrong section of the apartment saying this is for you, this is you can't put anywhere else. And we should put more tables in and let's use the waits as the if they ever see full there. They can say, hey, you can order from us, we'll bring it in, you just gotta take it across the street. And then the same thing I think you do with throughout for Squeeze In, Frank Valley's all the business there. We let that put tables throughout. Same setup. Want to go sit? They still have tables that are municipalities doing it.
The one thing I want to be clear about, and I'm not the solicitor for all the restaurants and bars. They have to make sure of their own laws, okay? I'm just saying that I think as a city council, in order to move forward with your thought process, you should know one very clear thing is that the restaurants can't walk a mixed drink out to you even though it's closed. People are still going to have to go into the restaurant, get an alcoholic drink, leave with it, and open it when they reach their destination, okay?
So the outdoor seating. So they have to go, let's say McWiggins example again, so they have to go into the bar and they have to leave with it themselves.
Right.
The bartender can't bring it out. Then
You got it. That's what I'm saying. They can with food, but not with
Not with
alcohol.
alcohol.
Right.
Whether it's a mixed drink, beer.
Right. That's
whatever
my
it is.
understanding. And again, I'm not telling any restaurants or bars what to do, but I'm telling you guys that my understanding of the law is any patron is allowed to go into the establishment, order a whatever, and leave with it in a closed container and open it when they get outside.
So another question after that, like I'm not, I know you're not speaking.
Sure.
So if they, obviously a bottle of beer, they have to go there. So in reality, legally, I'm not going to say legally, but they're not supposed to leave that establishment because it's open. Right?
Actually, they can now. I think they can.
Yeah, that's what the businesses have to apply.
For a newcomer.
Well, if I could just chime in real quick, I have an outside area of a restaurant, retail, hotel license, service of food and alcohol there is permitted. If the outside area is not licensed, then the service of food is permitted, but the service of alcohol there is not permitted. However, patrons may purchase up to so many ounces of beer to go on the licensed premises, then carry it to and consume it on the unlicensed service area. That pertains to, like, let's just say McWiggins has their bar area, their building is their service area. Now they apply for their permit and they say, well, we want the corner of Market and Third to be our service area. We're asking for an extension on our area. That is the area they can serve, where people can go and drink. They just can't take it out and walk. And I know what the city's trying to do, but they can't just walk it across and walk down the street and start drinking. That's not considered. You can do anything. If the city's going to waive, if the city's going to do their urban container waiver, that's different. I don't know how that applies to that part of it, but what they're talking about is the licensed area, like I'll use the Americas as an example. We have a social hall. That is the area where we are allowed to sell, serve, and drink and consume. If we wanted to, we could expand it to maybe, let's say, our truck floor and say, well, we want to use that now. We have to apply for the permit, then we could sell it. People could walk out onto the truck floor and drink it now with no repercussions from the LCE as long as we got the permit. That doesn't mean we sell it and then they can go walk down the street and sit on the park wall and drink it unless the city would waive it. Yeah, they can do that, but it's their license. They're talking about the licensee's area. It's not their area. You know, if you have you have to specifically draw out your map on your liquor control license or your licenses. You have to draw the area basically where you're serving and letting people consume. What the liquor control is saying is we're going to let you apply for it and waive to expand your area that is attached to your current building, not all over the place.
So they have to do that before they come to us. Our assumption, they come to us for our permit about proceeding.
They still have to apply for liquor control.
They've already done
it.
But
Cameron Park has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. But but then I'm saying
let's say I'm sorry to say they can't use the Cameron Park as their area because they're the street.
It has to be attached.
It has to be attached to the property.
But if we waive the container,
that's on the city.
Yeah, correct. But I guess my question was, if they come to us and they would say, I want a permit for outdoor seating, and I want to do outdoor seating, our assumption is that they've already gone to the LC.
They'll still have to apply. And they can still
looking from a legal stance that we can't get in trouble if they don't do that, and then someone gets hurt or something like that and sues the city.
No, and I don't. I want to be very, very clear. Okay. What Brad's saying is correct. That the LCB is offering restaurants and bars with liquor license the ability to expand or extend their serving area. Okay. But, and the example he gave for the Americas is a perfect example because the Americas owns that land. I'm 99% sure that no bar in the city of Sunbury is going to be allowed to expand their service area onto the sidewalk because they don't own the sidewalk. Okay? So if they can't expand their service area onto city-owned property, okay, now if they own the sidewalk, then it's different. Or if they own a parking lot and they want to expand it there, it's different. But to be clear, most of these places are not going to be able to deliver drinks outside of their area, of their current area.
It's still going to be on liquor control to say yes or no.
It's on the business itself just to make sure that.
But the liquor control can still come back and say, you don't own that sidewalk, you can't sell alcohol.
Well,
okay, certainly.
What the governor did when people were saying, we put it in a container now, we just did that. They go in, they buy it, let it go. They carry it out, they sit at the table.
They sit at their table, that's on that.
We're just saying that, let's say, for example, if we can open the sidewalk, for example, if liquor board control has been saying they don't own it and they can expand their service out, I mean, they can't go out and serve.
They can't, you can't sit at the table and say, I want a beer.
They can't bring it out.
You have to go in it and then cover the container.
That's what they're saying.
That's what you were trying to make
clear. That's what I was trying to make clear.
Yeah.
My concern, my question, what is the city's liability? If some injuries happen, or culpability of an accident, like the sidewalk, or if we're not that open container, some guy's chugging something, and somebody comes up and hits.
I don't think it's
all other laws are in effect.
Yeah, I don't think it's any more liability than we already have. Because I don't think that there's any more liability for us having open containers than there is because they have to go back into the establishment to get served. That's up to the bartender. The bartender and the establishment are going to have the liability of determining when somebody is to the point of intoxication, not us. You go.
What I'm saying is, you were saying, he can take that container and walk over to the bar, walk over while he's doing it. He's not paying attention, whatever. I talk when he's doing this, and he gets hit with a car or something. Does the city have any liability in that? Because
No, because the MC is letting them sell it out. They're letting them, you go in, you walk to a place of business, you buy it, you walk out, whatever, what you do after you leave, it's your problem. They're allowed to sell it. They have to cap it. You can't just sell it.
Wait, sorry, I'm sorry, Chris. But that doesn't answer Rick's question.
no, the open container law, we're relaxed.
Rick, I will never tell you we can't get sued by anybody. Because anybody can sue anybody for anything. Do I think it makes our liability greater because we're allowing open containers? No. Do I think that somebody might try and sue us because of it? Yes. I mean, that's the honest answer. I think somebody can try it, but I don't think there's any way because we don't have the responsibility of policing, for lack of a better word, whether they're intoxicated and getting served. We actually have the responsibility of arresting, through Brad and his crew, anybody who's visibly intoxicated outside. So the laws are, as the mayor said, the laws are kind of remaining the same. The only difference is people are allowed to drink outside, and that doesn't put any more liability on us as far as I can think of.
And I don't see there's any further liability that we've already allowed this for major events, even at the Sunbury ice skating rink for private events.
What I thought when we were discussing earlier about we have some liability in what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
I
There we hired somebody.
okay.
Do you understand the difference? We're not hiring the restaurant to do this on behalf of the city.
So going back to like the parking situation overall. So I'll just use Rick Wiggins again as an example.
Sure.
So there's a table in front of the first spot, nothing in front of the second spot, table in front of the third spot. So you're telling me, are we walking on all 3 spots or just where the table is at?
All 5.
Whatever, how many,
Right.
from start to finish.
So to make it easier, if the establishments apply for the permit through the city and show us this is our plan of action for outdoor sitting. If they are only utilizing sitting areas directly touching their buildings and maintaining that 5 feet from the curb line, utilize the parking stalls. If they choose to utilize the curb line and maintain that 5 feet buffer on the sidewalk still, then we remove all parking stalls in front of that store front.
To make sure nobody runs into them.
That could be a deterrent to the business because he's going to lose parking spaces for his clientele if he goes out to the curb.
They have to make a decision. Are they going to lose parking spaces or are they going to
Think about this
closer to
around
their, yeah.
that you're not. It's like,
We're also
it's not.
talking
Yeah, but it's something with the outdoor seating thing is going to be a big thing here to stay for a while. I don't think that's a huge one.
Yeah, they're waiting this permit fee until the pandemic is over.
Yeah, I think that's going to be sticks around after all this.
Current in other regulations, we require a copy of their insurance policy.
I did not see that.
We should.
We absolutely should. And I'll tell you what, in fact, Jim, that's a great suggestion. Maybe what we should do is have them, if they're going to have outdoor seating on city property, they would name us as an additional insured on any policy they may have of up to at least, and Chris, I'll defer to you.
Well, right now, pretty much any event on city property, we ask for $1 million.
Yeah. Of $1 million of liability, so they name us as an additional insured if they want to put anything on city property.
This I'm asking you, would there be any conflict? You as an insurance person, I would come to you and say, look, we go outside now. We're going to move the alcohol and stuff onto the sidewalk. Then you're going to say it's going to be an extra fee for us.
That's a different policy.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be an extra fee. Basically, as long as it falls within your realm of service based on your policy, you can do it. As long as your policy says you can serve outdoor seating or serve seating wherever, that would be built into your
That
policy.
would have to be designated in your policy, right?
Yeah, but I don't think we should be asking for that, because basically all we're asking for is liability. And if they have liability on the business itself, and someone was to sue that because of the outdoor seating, the policy would extend liability.
We need general liability, is my understanding.
Exactly.
And
It's
$1
again,
million
it's the same-
with us named as an additional insurer.
It's the same way we can let a business serve alcohol and wine. It's
that
the exact same.
Sure, right, we try to do that with everything, even from.
Absolutely. There's nothing untoward or unusual about doing that.
This isn't a perfectly obvious, like, probably, I don't know if anyone's ever come there, but we just need to make sure that they get their insurance when they apply for it. Are we asking for the LCP?
I don't.
I
Just
wouldn't,
assuming that.
I wouldn't, that's not our responsibility to enforce.
That's what we need to get is there.
And there should be more than just a regular motion, it should be also a resolution.
Oh, yeah.
And it's insurance plus additional.
Go ahead.
Okay, so back, so who's blocking the street, one of the requirements for that?
If they're getting a permit, I would say that falls on the city to block off those permits.
I think we handle it like we do, handicap parking spots. Application goes through Jody, Jody talks to Steve, and then basically, hey, this has been approved, these spots need to be put. Steve goes out with help, so the application just comes to the spots.
But like we do for some churches, we give them the no parking things put over the meters. So why couldn't you give them a couple of cones and say at your start time of 5 o'clock, because Steve guys have already gone home, you can put your cones out in your parking spots.
You don't get applications with the bar.
But do we have an adequate number of cones? Do we have a good amount of cones?
There's enough to cover, 40, 50 spots without a problem. That'll tell you much.
What?
So, if this say, for instance, they don't put, now it's our responsibility to block it off. We give it to them, they don't put them out, they don't put it visible enough, and then someone gets injured, or we liable because we didn't do
We
it.
just have to specify in the permit where the code needs to be. And when the code needs to be put out, when it needs to be put out.
As long as, I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, that's,
As long as we're telling them they have to do it, and they're accepting that responsibility, it's their responsibility.
All right, so we're ready to try to do a motion for a resolution.
Can I just make sure that we're clear? So you're talking about them setting up tables in front of their premises, so that, all right?
On the sidewalk.
But then we also mentioned about additional tables being set up in Stroh Alley and Cameron Park. Now, those are not going to be designated for a specific business, but if a business wanted to put tables out there, it's just additional seating, but that would require the patron to go get their food and beverage, to go and bring it there. So their only service, so on the sidewalk by their business, they can have the waiter, waitress come out and serve them.
They can have food delivered to Cameron Park or Stroh.
No, I'm not talking about that. On the sidewalk, they can have table service.
I'm talking about what you said before.
I know, and I'm
just trying to
I'm
clarify.
trying to distinguish the two things.
Okay.
If they're going to go sit in the park, they have to get everything to go and take it to the park.
Oh.
They have
Only alcohol.
only alcohol,
Not
you don't need to sit over there and eat food.
Okay.
That's what I was saying, Jody. Only alcohol.
But if they're sitting on the sidewalk in front of the premises, so that's the extension of premises, they can get table service there, food and beverage.
If they get through the city house.
If they get the okay.
All right, so they have to just,
That has nothing to do with it.
the owner just has to comply with whatever the rules are from the LCP.
Correct.
I'm only concerned about waiters and waitresses crossing streets. Okay.
It's essentially
We
delivery.
have designated crosswalk.
Right.
They're essentially delivery.
that'd be something else I put in there, is they have to cross and crosswalks. They can't cross that block.
That's a good idea.
Trash.
Yeah.
Trash. Just throw out.
Yeah.
John, are you taking note?
We were recording to your purpose.
That's not, look,
No, so this would be there.
that's just basically it's
One around the wall. Yeah, and that would be nice, even, market house. There's no
Jim, do we have anything for people that are sitting? I think it would be better instead of allowing the businesses to put sitting in our city parks and straw alley. Let us put the tables out there and it's just open for anyone to use.
Steve and I were talking with Marvel, get someone on this side of Cameron, that side of Cameron, puts up a straw out.
Okay, we're gonna put out trash for some people too. Yeah, we're gonna end up having to empty them.
We already have.
I'm just saying, but okay. I just want to put an additional one out just in case.
We already have.
Oh, okay.
No, they're gonna bolt right there. J-Ball.
Okay. What do you think?
I'm just thinking, give me 1 minute, okay, if you don't mind. We changed everything a whole lot, that's why I stopped taking notes, because everything we changed. I think that's good. I mean, honestly, I don't have a problem with it. The only other thing we had talked about was ribbon cutting. We
That'll be no
discussed
different
that.
than any other park.
Was that? No, I'm saying if you wanted to put tables there. We had talked about wanting to do that at one point, I'm just reminding. I don't care.
I would be more worried about the tables right now for Market Street.
Yeah.
I think if a business though, like let's say, we just put a mobile food out, mobile food truck application. Let's say a food truck wants to set it down, set their own tables on outside. That's not, I don't think there's an issue, they just apply for the permit.
There are tables down there, and there's the amphitheater to sit at.
Because those tables would be moved.
Oh, you're moving them.
Steve's over there, one for Cameron Park.
What?
Alright.
You only have so many tables to go around. So then start somewhere.
So let's try this motion for resolution.
So summarize the resolution now, Joel.
Alright, so
Oh, you. What's up? You better write it.
alright. So the businesses must come to the City Hall to apply for the permit. The city will waive the $10 fee. The city will prescribe them the permit with the adequate information for liability reasons regarding the proof of liability insurance, picking up the trash by themselves, and so forth. If the business is allowing outdoor sitting connected to the actual building, they do not have to shut down the parking stalls. If they choose to utilize the curb line, then they have to shut down the parking stalls, the entire length of the storefront where they have that outdoor sitting. And then the city is setting up picnic tables throughout Cameron Park and Stroll Alley for additional sitting for everyone's free use. That's first come, first served to get the tables. There's no reserving the tables.
And when do you want it in effect, and is there an end date? When do you want it to take effect, and when is there an end date?
Okay. Effective immediately, expiring 11 p.m. August 30th. August 31st.
Alright, so that's a motion or a resolution.
Yes.
Okay. Who's got a second?
Second.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus.
Yes.
May I make one other comment? I know that you voted already. I just want, maybe for the public's curiosity to be satisfied, certainly you're reserving the ability to extend both of those resolutions after August 31st, depending upon the COVID-19 situation and everything else that's going on.
Yes.
Would you agree to that? Right, right. I mean, they can be extended at any time. Just at this point, they're going to end August 31st, as far as we know.
I just want to make sure that the code office gives out the proper information whenever business comes to that permit regarding the city requiring the city blocking off the parks. Cleaning up the trash, that way it's in writing. Alright. The soccer first reading fire department.
That particular proposed ordinance was pulled back on request by the fire department. They wanted to do some more work, so we'll bring it back when it's ready.
Alright, architectural services.
Yes, so we received a proposal from Strasser Bear Architects for the architectural services for the police department building project, and you all have that proposal in your packets, I believe. The summary is up here on the slide as far as the proposed fees for each of those phases of the project. And it does represent approximate 6.3% of the total cost of the project, which they, of the renovation project, which they estimated at $750,000. So the council want to continue on with Strasser Bear as the architects for the project through completion.
Those $200 reimbursement, I thought more of the work that had done prior to reimbursement.
I'm sorry, I don't recall that.
Yeah, 4,000 or whatever, 5,000.
I thought once we do all the phases, some of that was credited back.
It's a separate work.
I understand that. But a lot of the work has been already done on the phases.
This work, there's stuff in there. Are you talking about the design development section alone?
Yes.
Because the rest of it's new. The design development section is maybe cross, but I think there's still.
But that's much more detailed and involves engineering, which they don't do in the preliminary design.
All I did was just
And the opinion of probable cost, which is usually just based on square footage and
This cost
some estimates. Yes.
Case that. It's up on. Reimbursement. Us reimbursing that original. It's all $30,000. But that's it.
That's what
I
it
was
is.
just trying to get more credit back to our cause.
Well, that reimbursable, so I think Chris is right. That is, we're reimbursing them for things like copying and whatever. I'm taking a guess, but that's probably the.
I don't remember discussing.
So back to my $750,000 budget, that's about based on
What?
the budget. If the building would get $600,000,
No.
it says ABP is 6.2 basis of the budget.
I think that's
So architectural and engineering piece. So when they are proposing to do the work, a lot of times the grantor or the like USDA is going to say you can't spend architect and engineering fees greater than a certain percentage of your overall project cost. And so they're just saying, hey, be aware this represents 6.3%, which is a good rate for doing work for government. That doesn't change it.
I think their fees are there.
Yeah, these are the
If
fees.
they can get it 600,000, then it'll be a higher percentage.
They're doing that for grant purposes, just to give you an example. On the back page, they bring down what their hourly is, what the reimbursement benefits they're talking about, and they probably estimated how many hours we have to do each thing along the way, and then they have to charge.
I'm going to say we should probably do a due diligence and less proposal from other well.
Good. Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but let me jump in real quick on two issues. Reimbursable expenses are defined on the last page, so that is what they are. But also, you can, but you do not have to get other proposals because it's professional services.
This the email requirement.
No, they don't.
They said it's good on that. Okay.
Right. They want to see the architect's proposal on the official forms for USDA. And so Strasser Bear will prepare those forms for USDA to review. USDA reserves the right to review and approve that architect's proposal. So what we're doing tonight is saying, yes, we intend to go forward with Strasser Bear. Strasser Bear will then use their time and energy to prepare those documents for USDA so that they can be approved as the architect for the project. And I will say that, right, and so also Strasser Bear are familiar with this process with USDA. They've done it before with other police station projects in the past, and so their expertise, I think, is valuable.
I get the need to do more. We're in the city. They've been with us from the very beginning of this project, and they've done it for a lot of years now. So I don't know.
So you're saying this, who are going to do it?
It's one of the options. That's our fallback option.
Because you know, they can prove that. Have to do the same general thing with USDA ones. You'll do it that person.
They may not have the
You're
same
going to get
requirements.
construction on.
Exactly. But then at that point, we have to do it. No, this is professional services.
Right.
It's still
Well,
the exact same thing.
USDA
Well,
said they're guidelines.
I think we still have to be safe because if fallback is USDA, well, that's the primary option.
Just improved to have other options.
For loans, you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like Chris at the bottom of page 7, there is maybe some additional cost. Additional
4.2
services.
on page 7.
Would say that they can do it. Yeah, there has to be some option. They couldn't see that at all.
Exactly.
Engineering proposals like that, right?
There's no question about that. The 6.3, John, you're an engineer. 6.3, okay? That's probably not a bad number these days. Percentage.
Is this from the United States Department of Agriculture, FMHA or not?
Now, that's the loan. This is what Strasser Bear, the architect, is basing their numbers on, of course, the overall cost. And their percentage is 6.3. It's higher. I've seen already higher than that. 5 would be better, yeah.
My engineering contracts and survey design like in Packers Island, USDA, and they have curves that you have to use based on the estimated construction cost. And then once that is approved by USDA, in my case anyway, based on the estimate, they have to approve the estimate construction cost to the USDA. And then that's your fee, and it's broken down into subcomponents how this sub-organization might work.
We've paying roughly, we've done a lot of engineering work for trees objects. Those are all 6.3 as far as the total project costs. I think I remember seeing the grant allowing 10%, right? 10% engineering.
Oh, yes.
So that must
We
be
need to see a project. I've heard max is 15.
that must be becoming more standard. I guess the only question would be if we did do a bid, talking delaying 45 to 60 days, just send the bid, advertise the bid, outline the bid, get the bid. Do we have that amount of time? I mean, I don't think we do.
Well, I would recommend using that, since they have the experience from other municipalities projects that are similar, and this loan that we're trying to go for as well.
It doesn't hurt to ask. They can do better. It doesn't cost us much.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to save a bunch of money. I know 45 days, 60 days.
No, the estimate, that's the estimate.
Oh, no,
2 weeks away.
I saw what Jim said.
No, I agree. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, not the 45 days.
Yeah, just whatever it may be. Yeah.
Just say, listen, if you sharpen the pencil, we'll do that better.
So listen, we don't want to go to bid in less than 30 days, we're willing to do 2 weeks.
It's not, it's not remember.
And we can make some phone calls in between.
So who's going to do that?
Well, ask that.
Yeah, who's gonna work with them on negotiating a lower?
It's not that hard. There's just a question. I don't.
I would say the city administrator because you've been in very communication with this, correct?
Sure, I'll ask them. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would
I'm just clarifying who's doing what. Talking about people making phone calls and stuff, so I just didn't know.
So I say making phone calls, we'll check in some of the prices.
I see. Okay.
See what, not for these bills. I meant the phone, check our contract, or paying now.
Yeah.
And make some phone calls, what's the standard out, what's the norm out there?
I don't think it's anything against them. No, workforce. I agree though. Yeah, wait. Instead of going out to a full bid, 2 weeks is done.
Can I?
Yeah, Joe.
I just have two thoughts. Okay. One, I didn't see, or I don't remember seeing, maybe I might have seen their original contract with us, Strasser Bear's contract. They had a proposal, right? Yeah. But is their original design that they came up with for us proprietary? I don't know. I don't know if we're allowed to get another company to build us something that Strasser Bear gave us the design for. Now, I'm not saying we can't. I'm just saying I don't know if it's proprietary or not.
Based on contract. Yeah. I think we own it.
Yeah, and you may be right, but if it's in a contract that we don't, or in a proposal somewhere,
I never seen that.
well, I didn't either. I'm saying that's another concern. And then obviously the concern, the other thing is, as everybody I guess is already talking about, they're the ones that built everybody else's police station and did a pretty good job.
I'm not disputing that.
No, I know.
I like working with them.
I hear you. That was on my head.
Percent is a percent.
Right. No, I agree. I
3
agree.
tenths is 3 tenths.
I agree.
I like 5.
So they're not setting their price based on a percentage of the overall budget. They did their price, and then they said it comes out to be a very competitive 6.3%.
I'll guarantee you that 6.3, that pencil. That number's there for, you know what I mean?
I think what also it would be okay to work on the price. Can't, and that's the price. The price is the price.
Yes,
Come back
it looks like you broke it down by how many hours the project was have to utilize for design on construction on building. 6
That's why I always want my percentage, not the base number. Below that, it's about, we still getting 47%.
Exactly.
Well, and that gives them an incentive. What we don't want to do is give them an incentive at any time to make things cost more. We want to give them an incentive to make it cost less.
True.
You understand?
Well, I understand.
Yeah, I know you. Who am I talking to?
I think I would recommend, based on the experience of the some acceptance to move the project forward, because then we have to utilize the company more down the line for this project, is an incentive to.
All that Steve should be about the 6.3 now.
I'm not looking at the 6.
So here's what will happen. So what they're looking for from us is to say, yes, we're going to go with them before they do all the work, because it's a certain amount of paperwork they get together to submit to the USDA. So if you wait 2 weeks, you wait 2 weeks. That's fine. I'm just letting you know that will. They need an indication from us that we're going to go with them before they'll do that.
So what saying means they come back and say it's $2,000 cheaper, $2,000 worth it,
or even if they say no on that budget.
Here's how I also look at it. We're going to be voting on earning money to buy the farm, unless we buy the farm, we go back all this money about it, making a list of all the grants or all the things we can get funding sources for if possible. That's going to take months down the road until the application is presented, we see the grant money coming back. These 2 weeks with them is not going to hold the project up. What we have to do is acquire the building.
We probably shouldn't enter into a contract anyways until we have the building, until the building sale is finalized. Because if we enter into this and they start work on this.
I don't think we're wanting you to, maybe this is presented wrongly, but it's an indicator, not necessarily accepting this proposal, but an indicator that we're going with them. We can't sign a contract with them until USDA approves them. But they're not going to do all that extensive work to put the paperwork together for USDA without an assurance that we're going to enter into a contract with them.
And this price is only an estimate based off of the hours that they spend.
Well, that's the proposal is the proposal.
Yeah.
Can we make this contingent upon, like, the acquisition of property and from financing of the project?
This is how we are. The budget came in $600,000. We're saying, say the police came in $600,000. That's based on 6.3, correct? I mean, you can go about 47,750 on that side.
No, I don't think
Do the
that.
math, that's what it is.
Well, no,
Yeah,
there's,
So that's 6.3. So it's going to drop.
no, that's the,
Is that $47,500 is their fee? 6.3% of 750.
no, they came up with the 47 first, and then just so happened that was 750. Exactly,
Right.
it just happened that was representing 6.
They said this is gonna cost you guys 47.5, and just so you know, that's only 6.3% of the, yeah.
If it's 600,000, then it's a higher percentage. One quick question, just so we're clear on this. This is only the building, it's not furnishing, correct? Correct.
Yes, that is the budget that they're saying, the 750,000 is for the renovation project.
I'd like, quite honestly, you to look for 2 more weeks with it, and I'll tell you why. I'm not positive this is not a contract. This looks to me, I don't see where it says this is only a contract if we get the USDA. I didn't see that in
Alright,
this.
so I make a motion to table this to the next council meeting.
That'll give me time to go through it more clearly, but I'm not sure this doesn't bind us to $47,750 worth of work, no matter what.
But can the council say, yes, we want to have Strasser Bear do the work without entering into a contract? Knowing that this is what their
No, we can't do that.
okay. Okay. Karlovich,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Iser.
Soccer, parking. Yes, sir.
Yes, so you should have there in your packet a letter from the Susquehanna River Valley Dental Health Clinic. Miss, I don't have it in front of me. The gist of it, the letter is that in order to do patient care for the dental clinic, they cannot have patients waiting in their waiting room. So they have patients wait in their car in the parking space in front of the clinic, which is at 335 Market Street. So what they're asking for is to designate 2 or 3 spaces that are directly in front of the dental health clinic, so that that's reserved for the those patients with dental appointments, because it's when the patient arrives, they call in, a technician comes out, gets their information, checks them in for their appointment, and they continue to wait in their car until the dentist is ready to see them. It helps out the staff because they can see when somebody arrives. They can also have eyes on the patient in the car while they're waiting to be seen after they've checked in. So it just would be a temporary measure. They've been doing that. They've been having their patients park out front, and it hasn't been a problem because businesses were mainly closed, and so there wasn't competition for the parking spaces. But now there is more traffic and more parking, and they do realize that they're competing with OIP for parking spaces. So
Do they have like an entrance to
they do. I think they have 4 or 5.
because the municipal lot is behind
Municipal lot right behind them.
They're on the.
I don't know if it's the municipal lot.
The Benjamin Moyer,
That's almost lying there.
that's our line. And they do some parking as rear of their building also. But
But they can't see their patients when they arrive.
I told for, what, the every time period is no.
They didn't specify, so they kind of let it up to us to decide.
They already have stations parking in the municipal lot behind their building, and then when it's for time, they give them a phone.
Right, but the staff has to then go all the way out to the municipal parking lot to check the patient
Behind
in.
their building.
There's a parking lot right behind the
They do, but they also can't see when a patient arrives.
On this is, we don't know when, we're going green on Friday. are they planning on seeing patients then, or are they still going to work with the employee?
Well, the letter says that they're actually anticipating meetings with others we're going, and that they expect the departments to have one. They're not changing that area. They just
So they're not going to let anybody in the building.
They won't have patients waiting in their waiting room.
Yeah,
That's what they're avoiding.
There's numerous businesses that I've been reading lately on our downtown Market Street that when we turn into the green phase on Friday, that their customers, for instance, the barbershop, the customers are appointments, their waiting room, or now their vehicles parked. When it's their time, they're going to be let known to come in, but they're not requesting to reserve spaces. No. With the municipal laws being behind here, I don't see why they couldn't enact some kind of policy with their patients or customers. When you get here, give us a phone call. It's your time. We're going to call you to come.
This is how many spaces they want.
It's a 2 or 3.
So you're going to run into this now restaurant on there. I can block off 6 spaces, 7 spaces. What's the difference?
Yeah, but it's only for the restaurants because of the outdoor sitting. It's not because the customers are waiting for it.
Here's the guys at Tuesday. Just transmitting the car through there.
I think we should have a spot that only.
How are you gonna designate just park for those customers? You're gonna put up the sign, I'm not.
Why not?
Well, if you guys order me to, I will. But I'm just saying, think about it. I'm gonna make up a sign just for 2 spots. What am I gonna make a sign for the barber shop? Where's it stop? That's just my opinion.
Well, don't we have an ordinance? Can we just put place of use in public parking lots?
Yeah, municipal lots.
That's what I'm saying. Let's just go by that ordinance.
Well,
Already have it in place.
can I just make one observation that I'm not positive of? Again, I don't have a vote. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. But I believe this is a non-profit organization with working with low-income
Yes.
individuals. Which does, I don't care, but if it makes a difference, there's a difference between a for-profit business and a non-profit business that can be differentiated.
I understand that too, but there's also a difference from not having a parking directly behind the building.
Oh, I'm not arguing with you, I was just making that observation.
On one aspect, that parking lot, that is the parking lot, that is for the, what's the call building back there?
But Steve,
That's the building,
County
that
building.
lot is
County
part,
assistant.
yeah, your full contract.
that's not, they have a parking lot on their own property.
Well, they do, but I'm just saying the municipal parking lot behind there, we just paved that last year. And that welfare lot there, that gets parked slam full, and then they're parking across the street by the tracks.
Absolutely.
So that's really not an option.
It's right next to White.
They have a parking lot, it will at least be a half a dozen or 8 parking lot.
So I'm just saying about the municipal, that gets like. What's that?
Can I say,
Do they have a thing around the people spaces? Because that is a really not.
Oh, wait, yeah.
We can have them mark their own spaces.
I mean, I just think more with no bag, no parking, it's not a customers, that's what patients, that's where they park. I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't do for one, like, well, we can shut down 6 in front of here and there. Alright.
this is only 6
I just want to
away.
clarify my comments that I was saying regarding the school lot. I was thinking of a different building across the street to the dawn. Yeah, so my comments.
Well, there is a municipal lot back.
I didn't know what the rules said. I didn't know it was not.
Not directly behind them. I don't
It's a
know.
non-profit
So I
shop.
just motion to allow this.
I second.
All right. And
But before we finalize this vote, what are we going to do? Every single business now sends letters saying, hey, our customers
show
are
me
waiting
a
outside.
The,
difference between a nonprofit.
it is an opportunity we are affording to a nonprofit facility that provides emergency care to citizens of the area. That is different than any other business, my business or any other business within the city limit that is operating for profit. But I mean, that's what my answer would be, Mayor, if somebody brought that up. I'm not, again, not trying to influence a vote. I'm just telling you that's what my opinion is.
I voted.
All right, but before we go, so are they going to mark their spots?
Yes.
Okay, and then how are we going to say they're going to mark their spots?
However we determine.
To be determined with the city.
Yeah.
All right, and another thing. So if we're allowing this, okay, and our customers are sitting there, and a non-customer parks there, location parks there, are they going to be calling the police department to come ticket this person out?
It's just like any other case, like if someone else has no parking except for this business, we'll pass this as.
Or like the handicap. I would say it has to be specific for only during the business hours.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So they have to put out in the morning, they have to take it out.
Can I?
It's a giant
How many stalls, 2 or 3?
I think it was 2.
They said they asked for 2 or 3. So how many would you like? 2.
I think.
No, I mean, redo the motion because we didn't have all this.
I mean, I say,
But let me say one more thing, Mayor, if I may, and I apologize for keeping jumping in, but this is some legal stuff here. If the city, if you brought up a good point, the city is going to enforce the parking through the police department, the city ought to put up a sign that says the city of Sunbury has designated this as, not just allow them to put a sign on.
Well, how's it different from on my lot? I own the lot. I put a sign out parking for so and so.
Well, you own the lot.
So you're saying because it's the city of Montana?
It's a city owned. We don't have to, but I don't know that if they post it, I don't know that we can enforce it.
And
What about the bag?
You can bag, well, but if you bag them and they park there, then anybody can park there.
I can put up
You know what I mean? If
a
you're not allowed parking,
sign, I can just put up one sign, okay, that takes up 2 spots for the meters or square meters.
yeah,
I can put up one sign on those meters, just an official sign saying parking only for X place between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. or whatever you guys want to do. It's one sign, you can snap it on there,
and it's up to them.
and then it's a quarter.
Okay, and then if we're doing this with the sign, won't we run into an issue with the businesses that are renting the extra spots for this spot that actually need that permit to allow their sign there?
but this is the non.
this is a non-profit.
The non-profit.
This is a this is a situation involving a non-profit. We're
It's
taking it on.
temporary.
It's during COVID, and we're taking it on as a. It's temporary.
With the same expiration on it of August 31st. That's the motion. Allow
Two stalls, Chris.
two stalls,
One sign.
one
2 stalls, 1
sign,
sign.
until August 31st.
Second, only during business hours.
That doesn't signs.
Second.
Stand by. Okay. Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Eister, Karlovic.
Yes. All right, CDBG.
She's making that way all the way.
Yeah, she's still here. God bless her. Mitzi, you want to unmute yourself?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I'm had computer issues, so I'm trying to do this on my phone.
Can you hear her?
Can everyone hear me?
As loud as it's going to get.
Yes.
Okay. For your CDBG CV, which is the coronavirus response funding, after admin, you have $174,432 to allocate to projects that meet the CDBG and CV criteria. So we had a committee that met and discussed the projects that were received, and I'll just go over the projects that we received and then what the committee and CEDACOG recommends and does not recommend. The Sunbury Revitalization Inc. put in a request for a mobile hand washing and sanitizing station for $10,000 was their request. This would meet your citywide LMI benefit, helping all the LMI citizens within the city. That is one that the committee recommended to fund and fund at the $10,000 request. The second project that was recommended, the Shikellamy School District put forth a proposal for Chromebooks, hotspots, and internet access. They're requesting funding to benefit income-eligible LMI households and students that need assistance for remote learning that they're anticipating to occur. Currently, they do
think they
not
get their own
provide
funding.
hotspots or Chromebooks to students K through 5, and they are anticipating a need that they do not have funding for. They have 50 children in Section 8 housing that they've already identified that do meet the LMI criteria.
Used for school.
And they're proposing $36,600 for this project. And the committee is recommending funding $36,600. The America's Hose Company has put in a project for a mask fitting and adapter kit. This is a machine that would form the N95 mask properly to each user's face, and this would be for EMS, fire, and police workers. This would use your citywide LMI benefit.
But that's $100,000.
And they requested a cost of $14,278, and the committee recommends funding at $14,278. Sunbury Revitalization, Inc. also put forth a second proposal. This one would be for a business relief fund to help the businesses in Sunbury.
First one
and this would use your urgent need pot of money, which with CDBG, 70% of your funds have to be met for LMI, and then 30% could be used for urgent care. They requested a project total of $50,000, and the committee is recommending funding at $40,000 to come in at that urgent need amount. CSO put in a project request for a rent, mortgage, utility, and food assistance, and partial payment of a caseworker that would be assigned just to deal with COVID response. This would be requested for LMI eligible residents in the city who need help because of the situation with COVID for their rent, their mortgage, utility, or food. And they requested a project for $100,000. And to meet within the parameters of your funding, the committee is recommending $73,554 of that be funded. The last project was submitted by the Salvation Army, also for a food rental, mortgage, and utility assistance program. They requested $15,000. The committee did not recommend the Salvation Army project because we heard from the United Way and from some other people on the committee that raised concerns about potential duplication of benefits with CSO. CSO is the county's repository for such funds, and they seem to be the one that has communication to ensure an intake process that there's no duplication of benefits. Also, the Salvation Army did not complete their project summary form to show that it would be not have that duplication of benefits, that they would not that they would be communicating properly, and also they did not project any type of the number of households that they can show a quantifiable increase in service due to COVID. Are there any questions about the projects? Jody, I think you have them muted.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, it was on mute.
Yeah, the Sunbury Revitalization Inc., the Business Relief Fund, did they have any kind of a cap included with their outline regarding that a business, if I'm a business, I can apply up to $40,000. Is there a cap for how much a business can actually apply for?
There is an entire set of guidelines that DCD is constantly changing and evolving. So by the time we get to application, DCD will probably have a cap at how much, but SRI did not include that in their actual proposal. DCD will most likely, by the time the application goes in, have more guidelines of how much a cap is. They do have templates that they've provided that basically it will be council's decision and a committee, and we talked about allowing SRI to be part of that. Businesses would apply on this multiple page application. They would have to show that the need is in response to COVID. So whether it would be for paying salary for waitresses or waiters that are LMI, whether it would be creating an app for delivery service that they have to have now for COVID response, creating a takeout window. There's all kinds of things they could do with the Business Relief Fund, but they would need to fill out this entire application and provide it to council and the committee, who would then choose which businesses you're going to fund and at how much.
That was my exposure to there. He originally put it for SRI to have the committee, but then understood the city would have the committee. The thought would just ultimately to have the SRI's input from it into the committee, and then basically open a period of applications, take all the applications in based off of the guidelines of what can and can't be approved, allocate money from there. So if we apply for 10, we don't give you 5. We give you 5.
That's why I would like to know what would have to be initiated beforehand, because even at a max of 5,000, that's only 8 businesses that will benefit from it.
But so let's say 2 businesses apply, 20,000 each. They're the only applications. They're the only ones that apply. So if you get
someone under the market,
if you get 30 applications and they all want 5, then you either pick the ones that are most impacted that help the LMI, or give less to all. And I think they would have to come back. But at least it's something. You know, it's at least something they can do for the business.
Back to us, if there's input of SRI.
So the thought would be to form the thought would be to form a committee that would then make recommendation on which ones to be accepted, and that committee would consist of council, probably Jody, whoever, and then someone who hopefully from SRI, just from a business standpoint, because that's one of the purposes that SRI has.
But you're saying that they would make a recommendation, would it be, I think, maybe,
Who has the final say?
Who has the final decision?
I think, Mitzi, if I don't know if you can hear me, but did it have to be council that has to make the final say?
Well, you're in charge of your funds and to make sure that the money is spent responsibly and within the guidelines. So DCED recommends that it is council who makes the final decision.
We can do it that way. The committee makes the recommendation. It's the same thing that's happening right now. There was a committee that made these recommendations to us, and now we can vote on these recommendations.
we can adjust it accordingly.
Exactly. Well, it's the same thing.
Well, who was the committee that made the recommendation?
This,
Yeah.
That's up to you and Jody and SRI and to decide who's on the committee and who wants to be on the committee. And
So the businesses will be gone by the time you guys make up your mind.
Central Susquehanna opportunities.
I noticed here, a lot of it's all over the line is referring to. Is there any cross checks to make sure that one person gets funding from 2 different sources?
that's what the duplication of benefits that we need to make to ensure. And CSO does that now. They work and have communication with the United Way and with other organizations. There was a debate, though, with Salvation Army, because Salvation Army never really had these programs before. And when I asked how they were going to ensure that there wasn't going to be duplication with CSO, who is already running the program, they weren't real sure how they were going to do that. CSO has a whole, they are the county's repository, so all the funds and all the needs are coming through them and being assessed by them. So the committee and CEDACOG felt that they were the better applicant for the funds and to ensure that the duplication does not occur.
Is there any way for, because I hate to see the Salvation Army get cut out from town here, they do a lot for the residents here in the city. Is there any way that we can go back to those folks to make sure they have some real critical families that need something and be taken care of by another one of these agencies which will be getting the fund?
Yes, I can talk to CSO about that as well. And I know Joanne Troutman with the United Way said that the Salvation Army did have some other funding sources as well.
So was your point, though, that Salvation Army could, if they identified someone with a needs, they could refer them to CSO or
Yes.
United Way for the help?
So they can take care of
Yes.
I don't want to see anybody cut out because they have the proper procedures in place to handle this. It's not fair to the family.
Sounds like they're benefiting the same people. So,
They can give you some of the money back.
And so I just want to make sure we're clear. So council needs to either approve or not approve or adjust this time, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear him.
So the council is the council required to make a decision on this evening to determine which projects we want to fund?
Yes, tonight is project selection.
Tonight is project selection.
I would make the motion to accept the recommendation from this committee. I don't think.
With the stipulation, contract salvation, make sure. Yes, so they have everything else to try to help them.
And you want to add a stipulation as well that council will select the committees to make the decisions on this?
Well, I don't think it's a committee on all of them. I think it's only a committee on the business. The rest of them is done by those organizations. So the Sunbury School District.
Right. I just meant the committee necessary for the business relief fund.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Eister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner.
Yes.
Real quick, what's the timeline of these funds being announced? That I don't know.
Mitzi, did you hear the question?
Something about a timeline.
When the funds will actually be available?
We are anticipating December. We are hoping for sooner, but knowing the way that DCD runs with reviewing and getting contracts out and signed, we're anticipating December, hoping for sooner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did.
Alright, next one is street sweeping signs. Every year, the city is using resources and manpower to provide paper warnings to individuals regarding street sweeper violations of the no parking ordinance with the implementation of it every season after season. I understand this year we had COVID-19 and the city suspended street sweeping enforcement to lessen parking hardships with so many people staying home. This in turn ended up causing additional widespread confusion regarding the enforcement dates of this ordinance and additional use of city resources to correct the errors. At review of the ordinance, it appears that we are not doing what it currently states regarding the enforcement times, which should be updated for the current process or a future process that is being planned. Our current ordinance is year-round from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. We currently have been unofficially enforcing the ordinance from April 1st through November 30th from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. I believe our no parking street sign should also have an enforcement date located within them or attached to the actual sign post under the no parking sign so that all persons can view the enforcement date as other communities have done so, as the example of that image. To avoid the usage of city resources year after year to continue to provide warnings of the beginning of streets cleaning season, as it would be publicly posted now on every city street. So I would like an update from DPW regarding what is the process with our no parking ordinance.
No parking ordinance. What we are attempting to do, and what I was going to try to roll up this year, we just didn't have time, trying to switch to daytime sweeping. We're going to switch every sign in the entire city, and we are going to switch to daytime next year. That is going to provide a lot more flexibility for us, how we sweep, where we sweep, and when we sweep. Shorter time periods in which they have to be off those certain sections of streets. I've looked at several other cities around. Northumberland does stuff where, hey, between say 11 and 2, you can't be on this side of the street, and between 2 and 4, you can't be on this side of the street. That sort of thing. We're looking at a lot of different areas. The other thing that it's going to provide for us, if we do run a standard, hey, you can't park here from, say, 7 a.m. till 3:30, okay? That's going to provide that will provide the actual opportunity that the no parking ordinance was originally intended for, which was other contractors can come in, whether it's SMA, UGI, whoever, they can schedule around and say, we don't have to take the street up or anything. We can get up there and we can go get it while there's no parking in that area. You don't have to go drag people out of their houses to get their cars. So there's several different ways we're looking at it. And we're going to be working hard on that over the winter. And we're going to put together a comprehensive plan, create for you guys for a vote. And if you guys go for it, then I'd like to do that. The other thing that helps out is currently I have to bring one employee in who's in at midnight. He has no backup. He has no safety concern. He has nobody out there. If he falls while he's getting in and out of that machine, there's nobody there. So I need to get this in the daytime so he's there with the rest of the people. So that's my goal for next year.
Okay, so with 2021 street sweeping season, are we still planning the dates? The first of November?
Everything's wide open this time. Everything's wide open. We're going to look at this from
we're starting
from scratch, and we're saying, look at what everybody's doing around, what are the best ideas, and how do they apply to our city.
What month is your is DPW planning on sending a report to council regarding changes for next year's?
I'm thinking we'll roll something towards you guys sometime in January, and that'll give us sufficient time. Say if we are going to roll out in April, that'll give us sufficient time to run it through, have 3 meetings here, and push it out, and give us time to get the signs up and get everything changed. Will be a winter switch. And hopefully a nice light winter like we last year. Get it all done.
All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councilman Brochus, you're hired.
The past couple of weeks, we've been conducting interviews for part-time help. We came down to Jeremiah Anderson, so I make the motion to hire him part-time at DPW at the hourly wage of $10 an hour, pending his screenings and his clearances come back. All obviously good terms. I make that motion.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus.
Yes. So then on to the next one, Department of Public Works wage increase. Me and Steve have been talking, doing research the past 3 or 4 months on the wages of our department compared to the wages of other departments surrounding us. Other municipalities are much smaller than us, and after doing research, we found that our department compared to others are the lowest paid in the entire area. Even after our guys have been here for 15, 20 years, they are at a lower wage than people who are starting in other departments around us. Now, we went into account that these men hold CDL licenses. They're mechanics. They can tear down a machine, put it back together, any engine. They're on call 24 hours a day. If something, say, storm goes through right now, trees are down, they're getting called in. Also, snow removal. And plus, these men, keep up the beautification of the city. So Steve and I came up with some increases for everyone across the department. This was in our budget for the 2020 year, so it's not impacting our budget at all. We had in there for another full-time employee. We did not hire that, but we wanted that in because of all this going on. So we want another terms of increasing our workers' wages. So
what is the expected increase to the expenses for the remainder of the year? For all of them?
You mean all of them put together? See, do you know that number off the top of your head? So
The increase is, I'm still coming in under budget.
Before any kind of motion, I want to figure out an actual specific number of the expenses.
I would just say, we talked about it, I know that everybody in there is not paid adequately. The only thing I would say is we just went for the stamp program. And the stamp program, we're about to put a bunch of money into that. And this is exactly one of the things that the stamp program is going to study. They're going to look at our wages across the entire city. They're going to look at how our management is across, because I think when it comes down to it, we may find that a couple of departments are in the same boat. So that's the only thing I would say is to hold off until that is completed. So we're about to put all the money into it anyways. Yeah, and that's what they're gonna that's part of it. They're gonna do the management breakdown, the hourly pay breakdown, all of that will be broken down within that study that we're about to do. I'm not in disagreement with you on that, but I also feel I worked alongside these guys for many years. Like, I know what they do. They do a hard work, and when they're here, and I don't think I should take someone else to tell me that, hey, they deserve a raise. Yeah, we know that they do, so
I mean, to say, well, we should wait, they don't really deserve it right now, that's doing them an injustice for the time they put in the city and for the amount of time that they've been here. We got to start thinking of the next generation of workers that's going to come in and do their job. And for the wages they're getting paid with their credentials and their qualifications, they could leave the city and go make double their wage right now with the qualifications they have, but they're choosing to stay here because this is where they want to be. And to say they're not worth it, they're not valued at that, is a crime to them in what they do in the city.
Again, I don't think so that we're not saying that they're not worth it because we have a lot of employees in the city. Our city is, compared to the turnover ratio or the job markets around the city, the people that have been here for 60 for a long time, they stay with the city. I don't think that it's a crime against them that we're saying, I don't think we're saying they don't deserve it. I think what we're saying is it's been a long time since salaries across the city has been studied. And in fairness to not only them, but in fairness to the other departments, because if we were to come out and do this now, and we found out through the study that all the departments did, it's better to do it all at once, I think, once that study is done. But we already voted to put money in this.
So the 2020 budget has already been approved. We're happy to approve the 2020 budget. Every single employee for the city received an actual budgeted pay increase for the year. I do understand what you're saying. The majority of our employees are underpaid. The amount of work for the city. But I believe we should put this out for the 2021 budget.
So my question is, I'm not pointing fingers, but Chris, you're in charge of your department and so on across the board. So, me and Steve, we met, we wanted to do this for our guys. That's your choice if you want to do that for yours. And to say it does come back, it's okay. Everyone deserves an increase, but if you don't feel your people are worthy of, I'm not saying that. If they're not worthy of it, that's your choice not to do that. But I'm choosing, it's in the budget. It's coming under. We're still under budget. The manpower it was put in there to hire another full-time employee. We didn't do that. So you're telling me, so if we don't do this, should we just hire a full-time employee that's in the budget?
One quick question. So that means then, since you're using that for the existing employees, you're not going to hire another full-time employee?
Not for the remainder of next year, no.
Hang on a second. We are down, since I came, we are down 3 full-time employees in my department.
To maybe plus up another department, as you see it across an organization. If you do a large increase in your department now, and then we do the study, and we see that there are needs in other departments, but we've already obligated ourselves to this large increase. Now we can't afford it, right? Also, there needs to be an extrapolation from, yes, we can afford it in this year's budget, but can we afford it in future years' budget?
I asked that same thing. I'm not going back to the past about debt service.
That's because we calculated the debt service and we know how much debt service head we have. Because it's a different kind of pot of money. It's a different.
So if I calculate a full-time employee now for this year, so you're telling me next year, if I can't afford it, I got to terminate.
Yes, that can happen.
So I know, I get that.
Pretty much is basically the same amount. I mean, going forward.
What we're saying, we're not changing the amount.
Yes,
Just changing the structure of the employee.
We're not changing any amounts right now. Come November, if you say I want to hire another employee, you change it because you already gave that man money, that person's money to these here right here.
But we're 3 people under full-time that we were last year when Steve came on. So
when I came on,
and there are other needs in the organization. There needs to be a supervisor in code department. There needs to be a supervisor in Parks and Rec. And we need to do this examination of our organization and structure, wages and benefits, in a very structured manner, down deep diving, and then also extrapolating out to see what we can afford. If you make a decision in only this department right now, you could be shooting yourself in the foot to be able to get what's needed across the organization. I'm saying that in managing an entire organization, it's better to, I think it would be better for you to wait for the stamp program to do that analysis of our organizational structure and operations so that they can make recommendations. So the reason you saved a lot of money is, yeah, you didn't hire the full-time employees back, you went part-time. Sometimes that's good balancing. in order to get more bang for your buck. And now you're maybe realizing maybe I need to, the part-timers aren't working out so well, I'd rather have a full-timer, but all of that kind of has to be in the big picture.
So we were able to hire somebody about a different department because we pulled it off. That's where I think you have to kind of allocate all of that at once without giving a pot of
That's paid.
It should not be done.
Something like that service, accountable because once you get that off the lawn, once you hire somebody that's in their grades, okay, that's there forever until you retire. That cost doesn't go away. And every year when you get the percentage or sometimes you give a quarter an hour, whatever, that affects that the gentleman retires. Steve, back to your point about shaking your head no.
No, I'm just looking at my screen, sorry.
It does. Steve, back to your department, it's either your men are doing such a good job or they're overstaffed for all these years.
Well, my labor budget when I got here was $560,000. That was across the board, top to bottom, all labor. Okay? Last year we brought in $86,000 under. Okay? What I'm forecasting for the current season that we are in is that we're going to bring it in. We're currently forecast to bring it in at $442,000.
We're not questioning that you're not saying.
And I budgeted 519 in there. So I'm coming in under is what I'm saying. And I'm just trying to reduce reallocation. I've built my job descriptions. I have 7 different job descriptions down there that covers everybody from top to bottom within there with responsibilities that I can hand to each employee, each new employee, so he knows how to work the steps up the ladder. It has a rates of pay in for each one of those. I'm just saying I've gone through that. I'm
done an excellent job. But Jody's brought up a little bit ago. The whole city needs restructured.
I 100% concur. My question is, when is this program going to take place? When is it going to be timeline?
This year, and as soon, now that the state has passed their budget, they'll sign off on the contract and we'll be able to hire the consultant. So it will happen this year.
So you have to remember, every time you take the state money at the end of the year, you can't say, oh, we're going to give everybody a raise with it. It doesn't work that way.
I get that.
The money, and I'm saying the money that you're saving is because you did not hire on the floor, correct?
What I did is I reallocated my resources in such a way that I utilized a little bit more part-time, and I also put my guys in situations that they were never in before. Plus, we've also brought in standard operating procedures. We've brought in things like the brush policy. We only collect brush once a week. We don't collect it 5 days a week. We have everything itemized. Everything goes into a daily spreadsheet. That everything, we know how many hours it takes us every week to each task.
Do you realize the chaos? I fully respect every single employee of the city, no matter if it's a contractor, janitor all the way to the police department, okay? They all are an essential employee of this community. But we just cannot be. This is going to cause chaos between the other departments. We update every single person's job description across the board in the middle of budget season. Give everybody a drastic pay increase in the middle of budget season. And now the code office is going to want the same thing. The treasurer's office, the non-union employees at the police department is going to want the same thing.
So then I have a question, then going forward, say, okay, oh no, and then 2021, all right, this is what the raise is. Then what's stopping in the future? Like, well, now we can't afford it anymore. Now we're going to say, sorry, you're going to take a decrease in pay.
Well, in this business here, there are hard times.
Oh, I know, I understand.
Decisions have to be made.
Oh, I completely understand that.
We know if the market was down in the pension fund, we've got a problem.
Nice.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that say okay now what you give right now brings you up to $517,000. This is just hypothetical, okay? So now you know you're going to have that next year's budget, right?
Yes.
So now you're going to budget how much more to hire another person full time, plus their wages. Now, we have to get that money. If you're the full-time employee, what was the wages of the full-time employee?
For a year? Or
Yeah,
per
yeah.
hour?
No, what you figured in your budget this year for a full-time employee?
For a full-time employee, varies greatly. Because are they single? Are they married?
Okay, what I'm saying, but you budgeted $517,000. So if you fill that up with raises this year, you have that automatically. Now, if you bring another full-time on, you're increasing what you said. It could be could be 50, could be 60,000 more. Okay. Then you're going to plus give a raise in November to every existing person. So now we have to find that extra money. Say we have to find another $75,000 just in your department to go. But we have to find that money from a tax base that's getting smaller and is pretty much on fixed incomes.
So I guess we don't know how next year's budget is going to be affected because of COVID-19 right now. So I guess going forward then, so for we'll say, after the plan comes in, this is where everyone should get reserved. After that point, I'm never going to hire another employee again because you're going to tell me after my wages increase, after the study comes in, whatever it may be, which is going to pretty much account for that full-time employee around scenarios, then that's my, so however many guys I have now, I'm never going to have the opportunity.
What happens is we gotta find ways to create more income, and that's raise taxes, but we're almost at the max there. I think we're 1.5% away from the max.
Well, we won't need to add any additional personnel unless there's additional responsibilities.
Yeah, there's more workload.
The concept here was I took the first year and a half year or so and took it and established this is what the parameters, this is the workforce that's required to do the work that we have. And that's where we come up with our crew structure. That's where we come up with our job description. And I'm fine. I understand everything you guys are saying, and I agree with some of what you guys are saying. And if this program goes through and we can bring the whole city up to getting the job descriptions for each one, to getting, that hiring process in, to get all that established, to get everything filled out like I have filled out for my department. If we can bring the whole city up, that would be fantastic.
One of the portions of the STAMP program, you'll have an opportunity to speak directly with the consultants, talk about exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, and that'll be
why you need what you need. Basically, it gives every department an opportunity to pitch what they need, and then they can do their study to basically figure out where it makes sense for them to go. And that it puts some legs behind whatever decision you make.
Okay.
So the end goal for the organization is a stable staffing structure. So you know in each department how many full-time makes sense, how many part-time seasonal, and that you don't hire just willy-nilly, oh, I think I got an extra job to do, let me hire somebody. No, you have set positions that get filled. And if somebody leaves that position, then you replace them. And then that stabilizes your wages budget for the out years. So you're not hiring various numbers of employees every year, but you stabilize it based on the data of the workload. And then if workload is added, say the city's providing another service, then there would be some revenue from that service, and then that's how you justify additional people.
Oh, I
right?
Understand.
So
the services that we provide don't provide revenue for the city for picking up for us for cutting the past. Those services we're not charging.
But we will be starting to have something because we generate more with some of our utility agreements.
Yeah, with those, yes.
We will start generating some money.
We've been working on these for a while to generate revenue. Cutting grasses, people that are nuisance properties.
We already have a process in place for that. We can force accounts now. The only problem that I have with that is that money ends up flowing to general, and it doesn't flow back into my department. And I think that's wrong.
Well, see, that's an old
argument.
Yeah,
we're not going to go. Different story. That's an old argument.
I also your question also about those departments not ready.
Yeah, they're not departments.
It's not.
And we're not allowed to.
Oh, exactly. It's what we use.
Okay. I mean, I understand the study and all that stuff. I just find it. If I can't make a decision for the department, I gotta wait for someone else to tell me how to make a decision. Like, why am I even in this position? I'm not saying I don't want to be here. Don't feel like that.
We're not telling you you can't make decisions for your department.
But you're telling me how I can spend my money.
No, it's
I
really
mean, it's not my money. I'm not saying it's my personal money, but I need to have an organization tell me like what we're worth.
This isn't you coming to council and trying to purchase a new piece of equipment because something broke down. This is you coming to council. Steve, total number of employees, full-time, part-time, department.
I got 5.
Alright, I do that. But that's different than fixing the piece of equipment in the middle of budget. We already gave all the employees across the board a pay raise for 2020. We're in the process of implementing this STEM program this year. We don't know what the results are going to be from that yet. If you want to do your pay increases, I would recommend budgeting it in the 2021 season.
And like, just as a counterpoint to what you said about, your decision for your department. To me, and that's something I said to everybody, the fact that council for years had focused on a narrow path of my department, my rules, my just doesn't work. It's a city government where every department has to work together. Money has to be. It can't just be a tunnel vision of I have the budget, I'm spending it. Screw you, because you don't have that money, you can't spend my money. If we operate that way,
That flows into like we're doing the things that I work, how we're starting to do all of our tracking, all of our equipment, and everything. Now we have a complete tracking skill for all of our equipment. Code now is bringing down their equipment to us to get service.
yes.
We're doing their service for them. So we're starting to work into partnering like that. And eventually what we can do is like even just with the fleet management that we can get all of like right now, all the city code cars, they all fall in the same fleet management that we have. So like you might have like truck 3-6 and then 3-7 is their PM. And we just work our way up. And now we're building a combined system throughout the system. And that's for fleet, that's for wages, that's for everything, for job descriptions, and yada yada. And I can see that's going to take some time, and it's going to take, go through review. However, you have 2 employees that need to be recognized, need to be, I think, outside of the general rate.
100% agree. So, I mean, I'm going to have 2 motions here. The first one, I don't see the shot. But I make a motion to get the increases for the following individuals: Paul Russo, Glenn O'B, Randall Knapp, Michael Vaughn, Craig Vaughn, Perry Lawrence, Jeff Kunkel, going forward the rest of the year. That's my motion. Just for that first one.
How much you want to give them?
You want $1? You want what they're after, what they're going to?
Yeah.
Paul Russo, he's part-time. He's going from $10 to $15 an hour because of his, if you want to know why, ask Steve. Steve's there. He can speak.
Paul Russo, first off, is a retired truck driver that's got 40 years driving a truck, plus pulling wrenching. Hired him in down there. He is our speed truck driver, and has pulled wrenches, and he mows, and he does almost everything that the most experienced person down here does. He is woefully under rewarded at $10 an hour. Woefully. Okay, that's a man that carries a CDL. That's a man that has all that experience behind him. I hired him at $10 an hour to try him out, see how it would work out. It's worked out phenomenal. The man needs to be rewarded.
Do you think you're a full-time person?
No, he doesn't want full-time. He's retired. He's retired.
All right. Okay, moving on.
I hired him over a year ago.
All right, he'll be Glenn O'B. He's at $10, $20 to $11 an hour. Randy Knapp is at $17.56 to $19. Mike B. Long at $14.26 to $18. Craig, but also Mike is on call 24 hours a day.
These don't sound like equal raises.
Well, I mean, if you take the time to listen to Steve, he can tell you why these raises are what they should be.
Everything is based upon their job description.
No. I mean, Craig is at 18.36 to 20. Terry Lawrence is at 18.36 to 19, and Jeff Pump at 17.39 to 18. So those are the numbers. I mean,
Is there a second to Councilman Brochus' motion? Okay, the table here is none. You have another motion.
this is knowing that was going to get shot down. This is the next one. Talked about Paul Russo and Michael Long. Like I said, he explained about Paul. Like I said about Mike Long, he's on call 24 hours a day. If something happens, Steve calls him to go out and do whatever needs to be done in the city. Like I said, to put Paul from, since these other wage increases didn't go in, Paul will go from $10 to $16, and Mike Long would go from $14.20 up to $16.
Can I ask a question on Mike Long? I know that he does a lot with it, and I know from what I mentioned, he is the lowest on the total poll within there by a decent amount. Has he added any new job responsibilities in the last 6 months?
Oh, absolutely.
He has.
They never left him run a hustler. He runs hustler mowers now for me. He runs the big 72-inch hustler mowers. He's been entrusted with a lot more responsibility, and he's done a damn good job.
Yeah. He's at 14.20 right now. He's going to take 16.
You want to take it, what, 16?
The 16, yes. I'll go with that.
Where's the updated job descriptions?
Steve,
Because
when we
I have handed out the updated
I do think I don't think any more increases this year. Let's see which one. What was that?
I'll make the first motion to get Paul Russo from $10 to $16.
Is there a second? Table here's none. Next motion.
I'm sticking with what Steve said. He did the research behind it.
Okay.
Mike's.
Next one, Ms. Austin.
Who has another motion to make?
Mike Long, $14.20 to $16.
Is there a second? Table here's none. Next topic, Ms. Ocker or Evo.
Okay. So the request for proposal for the loan to purchase 337 Arch Street in the amount of $125,000 was sent to 4 banks back on May 6th. They were given a deadline for today. Those are the banks that they went to: First National, Fulton, M&T, Northumberland National Bank. Received 2 proposals. In return, the first one is from Northumberland National Bank, and it was a 3-year term, 2.65% fixed, no bank fees. And then First National proposed 3-year term, 2.99% fixed. You have, let me see.
Yeah, you don't know RP.
Make a motion.
Yeah, second that.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Heister,
Yes.
Karlovic.
Yes. All right. Residential rental property.
All right, so residential rental property has been significantly revised since it was first introduced back in May. And so there was a work session on the 1st of June, is being reintroduced today due to the modifications on the bill. The modifications included the rental inspection was just changed in terminology to a compliance inspection. It also clarified the applicability of the commercial properties that are consisting only of 3 or more residential units. Those will be administered under the residential rental property ordinance. And it also modified, so previously the compliance inspections and certificates of compliance were, although they are required for all rental units for which there is an active housing permit, we were choosing to only inspect those that were occupied, and which ended up with some people having housing permits for rental units that they were not using. So in this new one, they're going to be inspecting occupied and unoccupied residential rental units as long as they have that active housing permit. And there would be exceptions for units that are under renovation for not meeting the code requirements, but because they're under renovation. Also, it had updated the definitions, clarified the housing permit process and requirements, and clarified inspection procedures. And that's a summary of that ordinance. Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Heister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner.
Yes.
Next is the first reading of Bill number 2020-06. This has been revised since it was proposed to be introduced and then was tabled. So it's being introduced today as new legislation. It was also discussed at a work session on June 1st. And it establishes a compliance inspection program for commercial properties. It establishes the requirements and process for a certificate of compliance that would be renewed every 3 years. And then significant revisions since it was first discussed was it clarified the applicability to the properties, and it also distinguished the certificate of occupancy that is required by Uniform Construction Code and the certificate of compliance, which would be required by this ordinance. Brochus,
Yes.
Heister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Bring that up.
Attendance has dwindled.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Citizen Police Advisory Board. Most of us, if not all of us, have seen or heard of the protests that are occurring all around our nation regarding the injustice, discrimination, and police brutality that still exists in society. Remember, if any right of any person is diminished, even at the slightest amount due to prejudice, then at any time, any of mine or your rights can be as well for any reason, and that is not a just or fair society for anyone who calls the United States of America home. Police Chief Brad Hare and myself have and continue to work long and hard to revamp our city police force while bringing about a change for better public communication and interaction. We are a small city department. We will continue to lead by example, and we strive to always want to do better. We take pride with how our officers and the members of the public interact with one another. That is why I will be looking into the formation of CPAC. CPAC is the Citizen Police Advisory Commission. It would serve as a liaison between the community and the police department by mediating problems or conflicts and serving as an advocate for programs, ideas, and methods to continue to improve the relationship between the police and the community. So I'm just informing council that the chief and I, along with the solicitor and some other members, are going to be looking into the formation of this commission. The creation of this commission will take time, as we must ensure the proper implementation process and responsibilities are created to fit our community concerns and needs.
This was one of the things that the governor had recommended that he's going to be doing for the state police for his group. He recommends it for municipalities, so we're going to take a look at it. What the parameters are yet, we don't know, but we still have a lot of work to do. And they're not going to be making policies, stuff like that. They're going to be an advisor that they see
Strictly
things. They see things that maybe we can implement, maybe even make better.
Brad, a little while ago, spent some time referring to how to protect the community and the citizens, and also going the proper procedures when you're catching the bad guy. Now, I don't think anybody at this table will allow the citizens to attack you personally, physically, and the opposite like we have seen in other communities. Right? Or firebombed downtown Sunbury, or loot the buildings. I don't think we're going to accept that here in Sunbury.
And I'll say this: we had the protest last week, and the kids obviously gives us some hope in the future because they were very well respected. They said their piece. They were a good group of kids. There was another one going to be coming to town. I expect the same. They were all good. Everything was good. We have a good community. That's what I like about it.
The creation of this commission will be just another tool that the community has, and that the voices can actually be heard by the government. All right, has council decided or thought about anything else regarding future use? Where are we at regarding the property that we're renovating the store, the Justice Street?
Well, we're a little behind schedule now because the parking is full. Steve left that, but Steve got to talk about those locations and they can storage. We're working on it. I think, Chris said about tabling, I think by the end of the year we should come up with a solid deadline to get the building emptied out and proceed 2021. What's going to happen. You had mentioned, you and I discussed it, and we discussed it with Chris, and I discussed it, and Josh knows about it. We're going to move forward on it, am I correct? On that building would be a parking lot someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so I make a motion, well, it's just a discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would recommend council bring it back, this for discussion to have an actual, an idea, probably by the first meeting, council meeting. So, or we can keep it prime.
That's fine.
Alright, Councilman Ice, Friday, Tuesday, public facility.
Yeah, Jody and I spoke today. The playgrounds after Friday will be opened up. No staffing this summer, short of help. We had some high school students, also college students lined up. Of course, they went and found other jobs because they thought, well, nobody did all want to check that. We are working on the pool, discussed that. We're going to get that opened up. We haven't set the time frame, but it's going to be right later this month. I wanted to thank the chief, but he wasn't here. He was supposed to come up and still in the pool Sunday. We worked all day, and we unwired the pool, pumps are running, and just a handful of things to put back up. I don't know, we can run a full schedule 7 days, most likely it's going to be a weekend schedule, because staffing is critical. OP playground, once again, we discussed the possible volunteers, we can all the staffing for that. So, it's just,
Send an application.
yes,
We get
and if you want to put it out to Chris, you're hired.
skate park, so we're still over Fridays too.
I don't know, this particular item was on the agenda.
What?
Private use of public facilities for June events. That was,
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, we didn't, like, if someone reserved something.
yeah, I have all that in this part here, but
Public facilities.
Oh, she's out with the green card. So is there any reservation for public facilities in June? No, it's not there.
I think so before we have 1 or 2 bookings.
We're just allowing those.
No, we're still working through head count wise and consider open space, the 6 foot spacing. But one good thing, in the pool, you're very safe because it's chlorinated, and I think you got it jumped in.
The 6 people somehow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's we're working on it daily. And Joyce was standing up and informing us about the guidelines and so forth. They changed where they could.
yep.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
No, Miss Auger, reopened again.
So this is just an update to the City of Sunbury, the operations plan. This would be for the green phase. So the city council meetings, we can return to in-person with social distancing. I recommend masks because everybody's in one enclosed space. Keep the council separate up there, and maybe you don't have to wear masks separate up there, but we'll keep the public back and try to maintain as much space as possible.
Trying to maintain the seat on the room with using technology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got this. And they'll be sitting in the chairs behind them, like, are you?
I'm just saying, you'll have bags.
Okay, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
But we will continue the virtual option for public attendance for those that can't make it in person, and also to keep the attendance numbers manageable. So the offices here at 225 Market Street, we will unlock the doors starting next Monday. And masks will still be required for visitors to enter. No more than 2 visitors in an office at a time, just so we can maintain social distance. They're going to continue to clean the waiting areas, high-touch surfaces as needed, and we're going to still encourage remote customer service, so using mail, email, and phone, and only in person when it's really necessary. And for code enforcement, they'd wear the PPE when interacting with the public. For instance, they do a code inspection or whatever. They should be wearing gloves and a mask entering any properties. We did suspend the rental inspections through the 1st of July. We did attempt to reinstate them, but we were encountering situations where there were individuals in homes that needed to be inspected who had either had COVID and now their family were sick or exposed to people with COVID. So we felt like we'll just delay it give a little bit more space and decrease the number of cases that we might encounter out there. For Parks and Recreation, just went over that. For private use of public facilities, it should be permitted as long as they have less than 250 attendees, but open attendance festivals are still not permitted, meaning you're not controlling the number of people there, large. And then recreation sites are open with precautions, and informational signs need to be posted.
Unless it's a protest,
and no
then we're
gatherings
going to let you get out there.
So the playgrounds, Keller Rice Sport Discovery will be open as of Friday, but they will not be staffed. OPG will open when we have the staffing in place.
Have they found out pressure washing in playgrounds now? They've been closed for so long, just to make sure nothing's broken in them.
Quickly background check that was working. Meaning now, seems like there's nobody in there for so long, and the high temperatures.
I mean, just an overall opinion, because like maybe moss or just overall dirt.
Cobwebs.
Sitting and not being ready.
We'll check that out.
All right. And skate park and tennis courts can be open as of Friday. For Sing Recreation Complex will be open, and then they should follow the sports activity guidance. DPW will return to normal operations, social distancing measures remaining in place. Okay. You want?
Chief, what about the police department?
We're pretty much there.
We're opening back up to the public.
We've had the doors, we want yellow. Not play the beat here, so also did people
Yeah, there's 4 people still on the call.
You know,
I'll go through quickly. Just kind of told you what all the stuff I've been working on is on the screen there. The codification, I have to keep pushing. I extended again my own set deadline from the end of July now to the end of August. And those outstanding ordinances that still need to be updated with other committees and organizations, we just need to keep the pressure on to get them done. That was the update on the strategic management planning program we already talked about. These are the things going on in community economic development. I did meet May 28th with the Sunbury Community Partnership Forum. It was really a good forum talking about some things that we can be doing in the near future. Also met with Vanessa Vinios from the Chamber. We walked the downtown. We talked about how the Chamber can get more involved with promoting and helping Sunbury in its economic and community development, especially in the downtown area. Also met with David Rose he's from the Sally Blagg Urban Design Consultant. And he's very interested in also engaging more here. I also coordinated with Representative Culver and the Chamber when the Glen Raven closure was announced, getting the employee support. And then there's also potential for, what's the potential for future development. And also attending the Chamber had an economic forecast Zoom webinar, which was very interesting, talking about post-COVID economic recovery, reshoring of manufacturing, migration from urban to non-urban areas, which I think are things that we can look at this as an opportunity to market Sunbury as a place that's open for that kind of, receive those kinds of
that's what we want.
development.
City folk.
Front office, just, helping with the audit, many other things going on in the front office. Council Finance is working on the audit. we really need, it's mid-year, we need to do an evaluation of the budget and the revenue projections for the rest of the year. They did get a new computer installed to replace the Windows 7 machine. Code office, they're up to full staff. Already mentioned about the residential rental inspections, and working with the code office on the processes for the mobile food facility permits, and then providing staff training on that. And discussing it with Councilman Reese. We'd like to do the permit process, but not charge the fee yet. We haven't approved the fee as by resolution for it yet, but we can at least pilot our processes and get that refined, and then 2021 fully implemented with the fee. But we can at least start registering in and working with the process. Not yet, because we're still getting all the paperwork, and we have that process just about in place. I think in the next week or two, we'll start notifying mobile food facilities that we see, hey, you're going to need, these are the processes, you're going to need to apply for a permit. We already talked about Parks and Rec. They're doing lots of repairs and getting ready for the summer. And then streets and public improvements. The 4th Street intersections are being finished up, and then they have to be finished in order for the paving to start, which is slotted to begin on June 22nd. And then they plan to be starting the bid process for the Reagan Street project this month as well. And that's just a reiteration of streets projects. That's it. What's that? You want me to do the announcements? 2020 census data, I think we're just about at 60%. We're a little bit, in Sunbury, a little bit lower than the average around us. So we want to encourage people to complete the census because that will impact the eligibility for funding and programs. FY 2020 CDBG, there's a public meeting. So this is our standard entitlement CDBG. We talked about the COVID CDBG earlier today. So this is our annual one. First public meeting is June 24th. That's coordinated by CEDACOG. That is via their online venue, Ring Central. And those instructions for signing on were published on Facebook, the website, and published in the paper. Heart and Heritage Committee, trying to schedule one of those for this month to get that started again. At the latest, I'll have one in July. And then the next council meeting, June 22nd, council will be here in person, and we can also allow public to attend. And now it's time for public comment. Anybody still awake out there?
All right. Is there any public comments or concerns? We will give you.
Oh, got a hand up.
Yeah. It's Bree Applebaum-Kula. Quite the meeting and very informative, so thank you. I just wanted to speak out, and I apologize for whatever reason the video is not working this evening. So I just wanted to answer Jim's question earlier about any concerns about the Salvation Army. There are coordinated efforts as far as meeting the basic needs and public needs, both now and down the road. And one of the considerations that the committee did take into consideration with the whole process was the fact that the timeline of the COVID CDBG funds will likely not be available until at least October, but more realistically November, December, as Mitzi said earlier. And at that point in time, Salvation Army will be fully engaged with the Needy Family Fund, which also meets basic needs as well as is case managed in a different way. CSO works through caseworkers one-on-one with its clientele and has already been doing the program that was applied for since back in March when this all began. So I just wanted to add that in so there's no concerns. Salvation Army isn't being cut out. They just serve a different purpose in a very valuable way in a different direction.
Thank you, Bree.
Absolutely.
Any other audience comments out there? All right, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.